What is up, people? Sorry about that. Kind of had some issues with what I was trying to pull up. But anyway, kind of wanted to go into some fun things today. Mainly the idea that Flat Earth is producing evidence at all. I mean, again, I don't mind that people are questioning. That's perfect. That's great. People should be questioning. That's basically how we understand and learn things. Um, but more importantly, this is like the biggest fucking issue. You ready? To be able to debunk, to show that something is not as science were to say, or how our knowledge of science is, you need to have a full understanding of the science you're debunking. There is no possible way for you to make the claim, for instance, gravity is wrong. Why? Because let's get one thing straight. Science does not claim to know all about gravity. Science does not claim that they're not searching for more answers about gravity. And here's the most important one. They're not just making it up. These are very repeatable. I mean, we all can do it. And that's even, I'll get to that next one. We all can do multiple experiments and make observations that show instantly, not that it's not flat, not that it's a globe, but that some people literally just don't get it. And there's nothing wrong with not getting it. Again, I am not the smartest man in the world. I'm still just learning all this shit like everyone else. I'm wrong a lot. That's fine. But for instance, we'll use Chris Berry, because he's always a fun sport. He literally is trying to understand science very clearly, if that's the case. But he'll get on a panel and say to a panel full of people who are very highly educated in understanding of a lot of the things we're talking about, and say, no, you're wrong. It's insane. I even reached out to him and said, hey Chris, your light, your sun doesn't shine under, or doesn't dip low in the sky and shine under the clouds. That whole experiment shit. Like, I literally reached out to him. I was like, hey man, just be honest about it. And he started to, but again, he's the same person. He's not going to change. He's being coached by the quantum erasers and the Rileys. But the issue that he needs to understand is that we see that it's old, very old. This argument is old, and as far as I'm concerned, I mean, all gloves are off. But at the same time, damn well, I'm not going to turn into fucking like a Reds. But at the same time, I'm going to call you out. I expect you to understand that science isn't a BS. Here you go. And oh, by the way, anybody in the bunker, you guys can go ahead and jump on the panel now. And Dan, I just put the link in the messenger for you. I'm gonna call you out to see if you have an understanding of it and are able to comprehend what you're trying to claim. First of all, how do you make a claim if you don't have a full understanding of how something works? You can have theories, you can have opinions, but hey, what's up, Alan? Oh, I almost forgot. Let me do this in here real quick while they get in here. What's up, GPS? What's up, Dan? You'll be in a second. What's up, Grizz? What's up, Amy? How you doing? Farmers, you're here. Thank you. And what's up, Astro? Matter of fact, man, you're not a dick so much lately. I don't even know if I have you in here. If you're still in Discord, Astro, and you do want to get on panels, let me know, and then I'll get you in that bunker, because I guess we're okay now. What's up, Wolf? Crash, you're here. You're not getting my hat still. What's up, Bearded Devil? More than welcome to come on the panel as well. I think, yeah, I know you're in the bunker. Darkman, how you doing? And that is it, I think. Perfect. All right, guys. Sorry about that. How you doing, farmers? How you doing, Alan? How you doing, Dan the Waterman? I actually like your name. It's very catchy. And thank you, Brainery. I do appreciate that very, very much. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and Dan made this point in the chat, and it's a valid point that he made, and at the same time, not a valid point. Ready? So he was saying that there are a few flat earthers. There are still flat earthers that do these certain ones that do join panels. And they do end up being 5-on-1, or in the case that we had was 10-on-1. Okay, but here's the thing. You're coming onto a panel to assert that everyone on that panel has no clue what they're talking about. And you know exactly what's going on. What do you expect? Because Dan, I mean, we've had conversations. It gets a little heated, but it doesn't ever get like it did just a little while ago, especially because Chris went way too far. The back and forth is one thing. It's not the fact that you guys have a different idea of how things work or theorize how they work. It's literally you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We do. I mean, we're not providing any evidence. Minimal understanding, but you're all wrong. That's disrespectful in itself, period. It's got to be an understanding that none of us know everything. Scientists don't even know everything. There's no possible way for a group of people with zero science background to then say, you're all wrong, we're right, period. And that's where those arguments get all heated. Because I listened to Chris, trigger blue. And the worst part is, I don't even know if he does it on purpose, but I don't think he even does, because I've talked to Chris quite a few times, and that's just how he is. That's disrespectful as shit. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you believe. You don't tell someone, definitely your senior, who sounds pretty educated, no, you're wrong, without any reason. It's weird to me. But if you wanted to weigh in, Dan, you're more than welcome to. Hang on, I don't hear anybody. Hang on 1 second. Ah, there we go. Fuck. I bet you guys have been talking this whole time too.
No, we've been listening to you.
Okay, awesome. Because I didn't do my mic setup correctly.
I take it you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now. I can guess what you're saying.
20 seconds ago.
Oh.
Okay, can I tell you a little story?
Right, start again, Dan.
Yeah, hey, Dan, I do apologize for that, because I saw your icon up and I'm like, why don't I hear him? Go ahead, sir.
I mean, to backstory, I got thrown out of most of the flat earth areas that I was. I never hung out with the potato people, but mostly the poncho crowd, as you know.
Yeah.
And they couldn't handle anything real nor any action. So you have to understand my frustration. It brought me around anyway.
No. I like I said, I actually agree with what you were saying. I just think the context of why it happens needed to be.
So you should let me get in the story.
No. I was just saying about when you were talking about Chris in Jose's hangout. That's all I was addressing. I wasn't addressing you in other hangouts. That was all I was addressing.
To a sore point where there's no way everyone could agree on that. So that was a bummer for him.
But go ahead. Yeah. You're right. Go ahead.
Let me tell this little story.
Yeah. How you doing, Blue?
Huey is always patient, and I appreciated that, because of his patience. And just 2 days ago, we were talking about the space shuttle and how I was concerned about the extra couple of engines on there. And he hammered me, telling me that not only were they auxiliary power units, but I didn't know what an APU was. And he asked me 3 times, and I answered 3 times, yes, I know what an APU is. But he made me say it out loud, auxiliary power unit. And of course, we looked it up later, and of course, that's not what they were.
Yeah,
So
I was there with you on
this
that.
is accidentally, truly, what we might call a lie or disingenuous from a man that didn't mean to do so.
But see, it's
He didn't mean
at the
it.
same time.
But
But
this is
remember,
not
hang
a
on.
matter
I
of
was
fact.
remember
It's
I
not.
was there. I was
It's
there.
like, yeah.
But the thing is
So it
he wasn't.
a matter of fact, and you took the time to look it up.
Yeah, but the thing is even when he was saying, or even when he believed he was right and you were wrong, he wasn't.
I
Wasn't saying he wasn't
I had
either
a
one of
question.
you. No, you're
I
right.
had a question.
No, you're right. Either he wasn't saying either one of you were acting
Right,
as if you're fucking wrong. Shut up.
Just tell me that I didn't deserve to be told a falsehood.
But it was it a
that-
falsehood or his misunderstanding? And there's a
Well,
huge
You
difference.
knew the difference. You looked it up. You didn't spout out anything, and you did your due diligence.
But
You
see,
did-
there are
you did-
times where I will make a claim of my own, or I'll
All right,
I'll say something, and then it can be I've had to go back and you know,
But guess what? I can't listen to that boy no more.
you can't
Now,
say,
now this is what I'm telling you.
Hmm?
He discounted himself entirely.
what do you mean?
Now, do I want to entertain what a man who doesn't do his due diligence, that wants to grind me on language to see if he can catch me?
Okay.
That's bullshit. That's true bullshit.
Yeah, if you felt that he was, I do. That
wasn't-
irritates the shit out of me too. I like
it
to be
was
very
not
upfront with shit.
It
That whole,
wasn't intentional,
huh?
but it ended up being crap dumped on me. And I want to move on to the next thing from that day, which was atmospheric drag. I neglected gravity. You guys kept looking at me, going, what the hell could cause drag? And I'm like, well, I used its sheer contents and weight, but I forgot about gravity as its source of drag. I don't need to go into that. I just want to bring that up with Barney later, because you guys told me straight up I was out of my mind and there'd be nothing causing any drag. And of course there would be. And it has to not only have drag, it has to speed up at the outer points. So I don't want to get too much into atmosphere. I just want to mention all that.
It's all good.
And then you nailed me pretty hard lastly on the sunset. And I've seen several since, and I just want to know, I want you to know that the zoom is an issue, because you guys are telling me another time zoom's an issue. And then in this case, when I'm comparing other ones, obviously if you're going to use refraction, that there's a large portion of refraction here, and in the greatest amounts. So I'm going to work on the sunset, but I just didn't feel shot down on any of those. And since then, I'm looking into them still. And the admission, there is a lot of lamesters that might call themselves flat earthers. But I just want to say once and for all, we're the ones who have questions. So the burden of proof must be on me.
Okay. And you know what? I can concede to that, but here's the issue with that. If you have questions, that means you don't understand, then there's no point in which you can say you're wrong. Or I mean, people are wrong, period. I mean, that is a situation.
Here's the thing. If there's nothing, for instance, no curvature, how can I show you a picture of nothing?
You would have to show evidence for how you would have to show evidence that there is no curvature, whereas we are able to show evidence for curvature.
I just don't find it compelling. I know what you're saying.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. If we looked at a picture, and I don't have one ready, so I'm not going to point it up, but if we look at a picture and we see a boat in the distance with obstruction, now
right.
yeah,
so we have to know the distance, and we have to see a moving picture to see something other than the illusion at that moment, which is what you guys accuse me of.
But here's the thing:
creating illusion. So it only takes a moving picture to change the idea. We can hang on.
Here's the thing, though.
What?
If we're looking at a video of a mirage, which is basically what we're talking about, what Flat Earth would say.
Most images most of the time over water.
Okay, well, refraction and all these things are basically the Flat Earth argument for why it's happening. The issue with that is if we see a boat in the distance on a cloudy day and it's obstructed, and that on The next day, that same boat does the same trip out, but it's a clear day and it's sunny and there's obstruction. If it was to be atmosphere that made that obstruction, then it would be a different obstruction. Like it'd be some type of different optic we'd be looking at. It wouldn't be the same situations over and over again.
I understand. And to be consistent, I have to tell the other side, because it just came up to me recently, is when we use the term refraction, it's just a coincidence that at different distances, it perfectly bends directly to the eye of the other observer.
Wait, what do you mean? Say it again.
Funny.
Explain.
Well, how could you have the same refraction at different temperatures at 9 miles and at different days and different temperatures at 17 miles?
Well, here's the thing.
Have the same refractive
index, yeah.
And have that be the same angle in different temperatures at the majority of the time.
Well, here's the thing. When we say, and we're looking up the index of refraction, it's the base idea of refraction. So, for instance, I'm in San Diego. Hang on. I'm in San Diego. People live in Florida. We obviously have two different atmospheric situations going on. It's going to be a lot more humid there than it is here. Hang on.
Repeatable science in the same place.
I know. Hang on.
You know where I'm talking about.
Hang on.
So Florida
hang on. Whoa. Hang on. So when we use the index of, well, I'm trying to explain something. When we use
all the way to Florida,
man. Well, because I'm giving you
I'm not working in Florida.
Well, here's the thing. I'm giving you a perfect example. Hang on, Dan. But I'm giving you an example of two different types of atmospheres that we can easily know are that way. We know Florida is a humid, hot place. We know that San Diego is warm, but it's not humid. So what would happen is then we would look into, if we're looking into the index of refraction, we know that I think it's 1.3 in our atmosphere, or air, oxygen. The situation would be, there is a flex in there. There is it may be 1.35, 1.4. No one's ever said that it's this. Air is not just this.
The numbers are negative at Salton Sea. You know that, right?
What? What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't make sense.
I know. That's why I'm posting the talk here in both chats.
Okay.
So I don't want to argue about it.
Perfect. Absolutely. I thank you, because that's one of the issues that we're having.
We've chosen a place where at least the refraction is turned all the way down.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. It's not all the way down, but there's no moisture.
Well, it's turned down as much as I can. As much as I can find within driving range of where I live.
There's much drier places. So where am I looking in here? I'm kind of
there's just a report that was done, happened to have been done there, and there's some summary there. And
okay, so this is from past times. This is 1975. Okay.
It's not my numbers, and it's not even within my comprehension.
No. This is I see what you're saying. This is literally a situation that you were able to find. Yeah.
Numbers, got lucky, and understood.
Says
it's going to be the other way.
Okay,
but
so wait, hang on, because I'm trying to because I want to read that part. So it says for the dry, hot desert, air blowing over the cold Salton Sea, the correlation was. See, I don't think that's a negative 260. That doesn't even make sense. Total.
What it is mostly though, there's less
not
temperature inversion there too, and temperature inversion on top of atmospheric conditions.
What's up, Grim?
Hey, Grim.
Because I'm kind of just searching through it right now, trying to find a reading on the index. So see, is this a document that explains how they come to the atmospheric or the refractive index,
I'm just saying that if you were throwing out numbers, look into this, because I'm under the impression that the location we chose is not only unusual because it's below sea level, but it's unusual because of the atmospheric conditions where mostly water and air temperatures often match.
Again, you got to remember, man, it's not the only desert, and by far it's not the driest desert.
Not a desert. I said that the water temperatures and air temperatures are often equal, morning and night.
Okay, but again, you're talking about a place that's in the desert, so it does have desert conditions.
Could I make a comment here?
Absolutely, sir.
What this article would appear to be talking about is the percentage effect of. So you have a refractive index of say 1.3, for example, whatever the refractive index might be, and then this is a positive or negative correlation, so that if it's a positive correlation, it increases the refractive index up from where it was, and if it's a negative value, it reduces the
Okay.
index. It doesn't make the
Yeah.
refractive.
So say I just downloaded and opened the PDF, and it has all of the math that that abstract talks about.
Yeah.
As a flat earther and an amateur, I would ask you guys and appreciate getting numbers from you under any conditions, and I'd like to defeat that. In other words, I'm not making up any numbers. It's just a curiosity how we'd have line of sight at different distances, different temperatures, all blamed on the same refraction, which has to have a formula.
It's not the. There is a formula, and it's
It's in the article if you download it from the abstract version of that article we just got the link to. I just downloaded the full article.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through it now, and yeah, unfortunately, my math is not sufficient to be able to.
Admittedly, I'm only putting it there to shut you up. I don't even know what that says. It's just that we have to.
There you go. There's your list.
We have to include any arguments that are legit. So if you have, anything legit, we have to measure.
Okay. So
how can you quantify our article if you can't understand the math behind the numbers given in the abstract version of that article?
I am going with the generality that we're using with the least refractive area we can find.
Then no. Okay. So here's the situation. The Salton Sea doesn't have that refraction limit. It's 100% conditions. I mean, the area does matter. It's a big part because it is a desert, so it's going to be less than somewhere else or blah, blah, blah. But it's not a set number there. Different days, different times of the year are going to change those numbers.
When you're working at sea level and shooting across it, wiping out a temperature inversion layer is kind of cool.
And the thing is it changes every day.
It changes during the day.
Yeah, through every moment. So to say that going to the Salton Sea to find the lowest that you could find it's not a true. You wouldn't know unless you knew how to read the weather and the temperatures
If refraction changed, that would mean to me the angle would change, which means to me that I shouldn't be able to do it under different temperature conditions in different days. Yet we have.
No, you will get different results.
Well, we don't. We get the same.
Okay,
results.
now we're in a situation of the last time, Dan. Show me these results.
I would like to see the laser beam divergence.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wrong about some of that. The cone shape was over 100 feet.
Okay, but here's the thing, Dan. What you're saying, this is kind of where we were talking about in the beginning of this. So what's now happening in this conversation is you're making the claim that you guys are the crew that went out there, or part you were there, went to the Salton Sea because of its low index of refraction. And what I'm getting from you is that you're assuming that it has that the Salton Sea has a index of refraction, and it doesn't work that way. An index of refraction is the limit in which you would use these in the equations to the conditions that you have. And I live near Salton Sea. Those conditions are not a year-round thing.
All right, all I want you to know, and everyone really, is that these are amateurs making honest attempts at real science with repeatable results.
So are we. I'm nothing near a professional.
I beg you to meet me there and show me a laser beam bending.
Okay, here's the thing.
Through
laser. You saying show me a laser beam bending? I can show you a laser beam bending on on right now on the screen. I can show you a laser.
I'm not asking
I
that.
can
I'm
make those
asking
conditions
you
happen.
if
Hey,
you
I can
are with
have those
the
conditions, Dan, here
Right.
where I live. I don't have to go to the Salton Sea.
So
You're acting as if the Salton
so
Sea
you're
is a
afraid to
special
do the
place.
same experiment side by side with me.
What?
You're afraid to do the same.
Dan, okay,
experiment
okay.
side by
Dan,
side with me.
did you do the experiment or were you just happened to be there? Do you understand how to set up the experiment? Do you understand how the experiment take? Don't say, hang on, stop. Do you understand?
On a tripod.
Do you understand
I'm just telling you,
how,
all you
Dan,
respond to.
Dan, do you
What?
understand how to set up that laser? What you're even doing with that laser, how you're
It's
looking
not
for
the
these
right
numbers.
laser. We need a tighter beam. It's not the right laser.
That's your scientific idea of how to set it up? Like,
no, it's just if we go back, we should spend money on the divergence problem because I heard it was over.
what's the divergent problem?
Ticket time. Spend
Yeah.
money.
Cone
make
shape.
donations.
What's the diversion
Louder,
problem?
Grim. Louder, Grim.
Dan, what's the diversion problem?
The cone shape is going to be something you're going to use and say it's not straight, even though.
Do you mean
it's very
do you
strong.
mean the width of the
Yeah, we need
laser
a
at the
tighter
end
beam.
result,
Don't
right?
make
That's
it
the set.
complicated.
Huh?
We need a tighter beam. Don't make it complicated.
Well, that's the thing. I need to know you understand it because
Yeah,
if you
not
don't,
retarded.
okay. So
I'm
then,
not one of the retarded ones.
okay. How about this? What is the index refraction for air?
I would only do it in low conditions where I don't need to measure it because
No. See, that's what I'm saying. Air.
you're not saying anything.
No,
You're
I am literally. I'm showing you. You're doing exactly what I was saying Chris does.
You just don't believe in a clear day. I got a
Again,
problem with
let
that.
me make this very clear. The
You
index
don't
of
believe in a
refraction
clear day,
of
man.
air is 1.00029. And if you are doing anything in that
Without
atmosphere, you have
Grim,
to
what do you
account that
got?
for. You have
What
to
do you
account
got,
that.
man?
You have to account for that.
You're not baffling me with Florida and math. Grim, what do you got?
Wait, no, hang on, Graham. Don't say shit. Dan, I'm going to ask you another question. What is the index of refraction in a vacuum?
You are going everywhere.
You have no idea how to
I never
set
told
up
you I
or
did.
come to a
I
conclusion.
never told you. I
Dan,
did.
please
So what
let
the
me
fuck?
finish what I have to say.
What the fuck?
You don't
Really?
have it.
Do I know what angle I
Dan,
need to
you do
talk
not
about
understand.
with,
Dan,
You know,
I'm
so I
trying
know
to
what
finish.
degree
Okay,
can
I
put
don't
me
want to do
in.
that. Dan, shut up. Fuck, man. You can't just instantly talk and think that's going to work. Not here. Let me finish what I have to fucking say. Thank you. There is no way in hell you're telling anybody if they're right or wrong. Bye. I mean, there are people listening that will understand. There's no way you can say, we need to do this experiment. We need to do this experiment side by side. And you have no idea how that experiment's even set up. The conclusion is calculated. You need to know that. And no matter what you do, you need to know the index of refraction if you're going to be doing anything with optics, period. And if you don't understand that, then guess what? You're going to look like a guy in his camera doing weird signals and shit.
Illuminati confirmed.
Yep.
And if you
It's all
don't,
about the patient.
and if you don't believe in this index of refraction, go get a glass of water, put a pencil in it, and then call me when you realize that you've debunked yourself.
I thought you were gonna say get a glass of water and pour it over your computer.
I know, man.
You guys are weak, man. I just asked you to just replicate your claim.
Do you understand how to replicate a claim if you don't understand it? No. So how are you going to fact check if we're going to replicate it? See, if I did that, how would you even be able to fact check me if you don't even understand how to fact check it?
Well, you don't believe in a straight line. I'm going to just show you.
Wow. What does that have to do with what I just asked you or what you're asking of us?
You weren't asking me,
Sean,
son.
you don't
Okay.
believe in a straight line. Shame on you.
Yeah, I mean,
Because Mother Nature is just
Now,
full of
when did I make that claim, Dan? That
It's
straight
all
lines?
I asked you to do is come with me, man.
All you
You
asked
said
me to
you're
do.
close.
Do you okay?
So,
Okay.
you
So
and
wait.
I don't
Hey,
trust.
Grim. I've never been scuba diving, but I want you to trust me with your life, and we're gonna go scuba diving, and I'm gonna hook up. I'm gonna do all your gear. I'm gonna tell you how to use it. How much trust you got in me,
didn't say any of
Dan?
that shit.
Or how much
I
trust
didn't
you got
say
in me,
any of that
Grim?
shit.
That's exactly what you did. That's
Absolutely.
exactly.
Bullshit. You
Yeah.
put words in my mouth. That
What did I put in your mouth? What did I put in your mouth besides that bong?
In my mouth.
Seriously, Dan. Like, understand
I'm never
something.
going scuba diving with Shawn.
Here's the
I
thing.
just asked you to set aside your doubt and join me next time we go.
Yeah, I'm joining you. Hold on.
Okay, fine. But here's the thing. Can you
No,
stop
didn't
acting
say
as if
fine.
it's part of your
You
thing?
didn't say fine at all.
I
You
just
have
said
to hold me
fine.
on your
I
words.
just said fine, Dan. What the
Oh,
fuck?
with an argument.
Dude,
Thanks.
please stop. Please.
But,
Stop.
Sean,
Yes,
I
sir.
think we're all actually doing the wrong, or everybody's trying to do the wrong experiment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course.
We should not be trying to do experiments using anything in the optical range at sea level,
Yes, worst possible thing to do,
surface.
isn't it?
because it's the most stupid place to try and do it.
That's right.
What we should be doing is very simple, and we can do it very cheaply because you can set up an ADS-B receiver for about $50. So we all set up ADS-B receivers, and we plot the altitude and range that we can receive targets at. I mean, the system will record all the data, and I'm pretty sure we can figure out a way of pulling out the location and altitude curve for targets from each receiver's location point. This is working in the 30 centimeter band, so it's very line of sight. There is some minor refraction going to go on because it is still electromagnetic radiation, and there will be some cases where you will get anomalous propagation because these things happen. That's why it's such a complicated situation. But if we were to look at the altitude and range to targets, especially with receivers set up near large bodies of water so that you can look at targets that are flying over those large bodies of water where you're not going to get terrain blocking. This will make you will very soon see that what you're not getting is you're not going to be seeing aircraft at 300 kilometers that are significantly below 10,000 meters for a start. And the only way that can happen is if the surface of the Earth is not flat. I mean, I have done it in the past with radar systems, but of course I do not have the actual records to show because unfortunately at the time I made the records, they were classified NATO secret, and telling everybody would not have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Don't fancy prison.
Yeah, funny that. Hey.
I'm
Nah,
sorry, guys.
prison's not that bad.
I'm. Oh, there it is. Hey, Dress, you're not in the. Why aren't you in the bunker, man? I thought I've seen you in.
I've sent him the link on Skype.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah,
awesome.
but you're right. He's not in the bunker. I thought he was.
Yeah, I thought he was.
All right. I got an interesting little thing from Garmin on radar.
All right.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
If you're showing us Garmin stuff, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I posted that in the side chat. If you go to that little video right there, you guys are not going to be able to hear this, how that works. But if you download this and open that thing up and go to 5 minutes and about 50 seconds. Let's see. This guy's talking. This is what I wanted you to look at. he's showing a little boat, and he's saying the height of the radar is 9 feet, and that you can use that formula he just showed. Take 9 feet, the square root of 9 feet, times 1.22, and that will give you the range to the horizon in nautical miles. In this case, 3.66. And then he goes on to say, okay, that's to the horizon. If you have another ship that you're looking at that's also 9 feet, then you can effectively double that distance. But this goes back to something we had talked about, I think the last time, to do with the range of a radar. Now, that radar he's talking about has a range of 72 miles, but you can't see across the surface of the ocean any 72 miles.
No.
It depends on the height of the radar and the height of the object that you're looking at. So that's what I wanted to show you guys.
No, well, that's fair enough, because radar on ships don't tend to be mounted. They don't mount them low, do they? They tend to put them up a decent height.
That's been tested in the real world over 1 million times.
Tested? No. It's not tested anymore. It's applied.
Well, that's what I mean.
It's a given, isn't it? It's known. There's no debate about it. It is.
I don't know how you can claim that. Just because you can have something like a phalanx shoot a missile doing over Mark II down just using radar does not prove its validity. I think you're being disingenuous. Okay.
Yeah, I did think you was going to keep that up for a little.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that, like, I and again, I'm not trying to do this, but this is where it comes up, because realistically, I guess a lot of flat earthers that believe it's flat honestly know they don't have anything to back it, so that's why they're not here, Dan. But so you are the lonely. All right, Montreal's here, so got a little help. But the issue, he's stationary. He's stationary. I know.
It's a stationary.
He's stationary. Yeah. No, I just meant in the fact that he will come at us with the questioning like Dan is as well. No. I try to correct myself because I actually forget a lot. It's a situation again where, I actually get this out now. Unless you have a full understanding, it's kind of disingenuous for you to say no. Just that word alone shows just the lack of understanding. Everything we were talking about just now, Dan, you have to have an understanding of it to come at us like you are about it. Like, if anything, you should be like, hey, let's go over how this test is set up, what's involved, calculations, etc. Get on the same page, and then I would have no problem going over flat Earth FE cores crap, going out there and doing it ourselves, but not understanding what's going on and then putting my feet to the fire and I know what's going on. It's like, how are you going to fact check me no matter what? How would you verify if I'm lying or not?
For you to doubt and say that we both cherry pick and don't understand when you're saying you're very close and available is not really fair, because I'm not cherry picking anything. I know it's been done at different temperatures, different distances, and I'm asking you, don't just say refraction. Show me the angles here and what I can do to show you that we can see further than the refraction would allow.
And here's the problem with what you just said. Hang on, crash. What you just said, I got issues with, because again, when what you did was, hey, don't use refraction. Let's just do it. I tried to show you.
That's not true.
Wait, you didn't? So index. What is it?
We use the calculators that include it.
Okay, hang on. You see, again, this is why when you say we, it doesn't work in my brain, because I know damn well, Dan, you were there, but you don't understand the test. Now, here's the thing. I tried to show you one step into what they knew, and that is the index of refraction of the different optics and atmosphere, or situations in the atmosphere. For you not to even know those numbers means there's no way you can go out there and fact check me or the people that did it with that you went out there with. You have to have an understanding of that refraction to make an opinion of that refraction, to make a claim like you're making.
I've got another thought for you, Shawn, and this is quite interesting. It just goes back to the point of refraction and what Waterman was saying. Every year there is a Sailor's Almanac released, and one of the factors in that Sailor's Almanac is, how much you should take into account refraction based on the angle of elevation of Polaris. Yeah, and it gives you a table based on the month, the year and the month. So that's something we can use to actually navigate. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Dan. That's a standard text that uses standard values of refraction to help make sure people get to their destination. Sorry.
No, I crashed and I got a phone call. So.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
It sounds like another phone call as well.
Yeah.
I'll wait for Dan to come back. But I think that's an interesting point, because that's an almanac that's been published for well over 300 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing they forget is that the refraction is changing continuously, and it is and the changes are of a fractal nature.
A gradual nature.
No, a fractal nature.
Oh, interesting.
No, he's going to tell you what you're saying. Don't worry about it.
No, I was just, of course, picturing in my mind.
Frackle.
Regardless of the numbers, we have to wait for it to get "quote unquote" clear enough to.
See, because of that, you can't. There is no such thing as a perfect day, and because of that, I know. So this is why, and that's exactly why what you just said doesn't work again. You can't say no, Dan. Stop. You can't say throw out the numbers and wait for a good day.
Throw out the numbers.
You didn't?
I just say the imagery that you see coming out of flat earthers has to wait for it to cloud up or clear up.
Okay,
and you're thinking that we're waiting for it to cloud up to get the perfect refraction. And it's the opposite.
What? No, whoa. Again, you're saying, you are literally saying the same thing I'm telling you you're saying, and you're going, no. Then you repeat yourself. Dan, I'm telling you right now, and you want me to know how I can tell you what you said? Because I literally have a replay that I make sure I have for this occasion itself.
Okay, so
do you want to hear what you said, or you want to see to the fact that maybe you're just babbling?
Well, I'm not just babbling, so whatever. I don't care that you aren't open to the idea.
Don't do that. Wait. Why am I not open to it? Because I'm trying to explain what you want to do.
Occasionally, it clears up. Sorry.
Wait.
In order to get the sightline angles you want, you need to be able to do the math out of that entire article, which was almost 10 pages of fucking math. And you will get the sightline angles over the Salton Sea given the refractive conditions for that day and time. But without any of that information, how can you validify or verify any test that's done out there?
Because I can tell you that all those refractive numbers are going to come in well in the 50-foot range.
What the fuck? Don't stop. No more. Fuck this. Dan, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. 50 feet. It's not going to come within the 50 feet mark. Has nothing to do with what he just said.
I threw out a number because I know.
Because you don't understand it. So don't act like you do.
Over 150 feet.
Oh my God. Damn it. Oh my God.
Something that makes certain things completely out of sight.
Shit. Oh my God. Hang on. I have a question. Dan, what do you do for a living?
Drinking water filtration.
Okay, I know shit all about that. Now, if I sat here and told you, forget the filter, let me tell you what we need to do about it or how we should go about this, what are you going to think? Shut the fuck up, Shawn. You don't know what you're talking about.
Let me tell you, here's what I really do in real life, and this is really cool. I buy stuff that already has specs, and it's their responsibility as the manufacturer to meet those specifications. I don't get in the argument. You're enjoying the argument about what it is. It's their claim, not mine. Just like Garmin.
Then you can't make that argument.
I understand angles. I understand math. Don't accuse me of not understanding either one.
Okay. Do you understand what the index of refraction is?
They're not being disregarded.
Okay. This is very simple. So it's either we're going to talk about anything that has to do with index of refraction or not. Do you understand it or not?
It's when the word
No.
refraction is used.
No. Do you understand
you
it?
need to work with your numbers.
No, it's
not
all
your
numbers.
words.
It's
Your
all numbers.
not your words.
Dan, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Not your words.
Hang on, guys. Everyone else, stop. Because Dan, I'm about to mute you. Please stop for a second.
It's your
Every
numbers.
time you make a comment, I'm not even calling them a claim. You make a comment that has so nothing to do with the reality of how things work when we're talking about the test you want to do. Again, how would you fact check me if we did go out there?
Guess what? I'm not doubting you. I need to work with your numbers so I don't get doubted. Remember the burden of proof? It's your math. It's your 26,000.
No, actually, the burden of
it's
the
your
burden of proof.
26,000 miles.
The burden of proof for an accepted argument is for you to come and disprove it.
Yeah, you keep telling us. You keep saying.
We are saying that the maths work. We are saying that the observations work. We are saying we have a body of evidence to demonstrate that it works. We have text going back over hundreds of years that have been used with efficiency. So if you're going to do it, you need to debunk the fact that it doesn't work.
Here's the crazy part, Dress. Here's the crazy part. Neither one of us have made a claim. Neither one of us has even got addressed the results of these type of tests and what was come to, because literally from the start, I've been trying to show that, Dan, you cannot be making the statements you're making. You can't be making the request you're making until you understand what you want to go do.
So what's the question we're trying to create a hypothesis for?
So here's the thing. Dan wants to go do a laser test at Salton Sea. He wants me to go along with him. Okay. Now, I want to know, am I wasting my time? Dan, I'm not talking to you, Dan. I'm just clarifying so he understands. Dan, do you understand what the test results are and how they come to the conclusions they do with the index of refraction? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Either way, you're using the index of refraction. Either way.
The light. Day or night. Show me. I'm showing you a straight line, and you need to show me a bending.
A divergent laser beam line doesn't, even if it's straight, the whole results are skewed if you don't know the numbers for the laser.
Well, first of all, Salton Sea test has nothing to do with can you make a laser bend. You understand that, right?
I'm just telling you that I need you to show me bent light.
How? Are you serious?
Easy.
Okay.
A glass of water and a pencil.
I'm a glass of water. Real
like
condition.
that.
Come on, stop playing games, guys. Real condition, side by side.
Side by side. So what would you do for your setup? I would love to know that.
I'm just going to tell you what's been done and what you don't believe in. Of course, lasers at night.
Please tell me.
Lasers at night. Mirror flashes by day. This is the same location, different days, right? And now infrared. So you guys don't buy all three of that shit.
You just made words.
I don't buy their numbers for that shit because every time you ask them for exact numbers, they don't have.
I'm telling you right now, FE Core, their first test they did at Salton Sea, their numbers are so off, it's pathetic. I'm telling you that right now.
FE Core has never been to Salton Sea as far as I know.
Yeah, a lot of okay. I'm sorry. The test they went out there with, the group wasn't called FE Core yet, but everyone in FE Core was there.
It isn't. It has nothing to do with FE Core.
Listen, the guys, people that were there, you were there for the second test. Understand that, Dan, okay? First of all.
No, I understand everything. You're just fucking saying shit.
Yeah, it's called logical. Jesus fucking Christ.
Totally different organization.
Okay, so I have showed you. Look. I'm showing you refraction. I'm showing you.
In a glass.
Yeah, water too.
I'm telling you to do it in real life.
Do you know what refraction is, Dan?
Yeah.
What is it?
You're lame.
I'm fucking lame. You have not yet to explain. Okay, how about this? I'll shut up. You go ahead and explain it now, Dan, since I'm fucking lame.
I'm asking you to demonstrate it in real atmospheric conditions.
See, that's the problem. The fact that you don't understand that I don't have to. I can show it to you right now, and everyone knows this.
Okay, whatever.
You're arguing a mute point.
Your argument's weak.
No, you have no argument, and that's all there is fucking to it.
Yeah. What's not analogous between showing that water or water vapor, which would have similar properties, just less density, If we can show that water can bend light,
I'll do it with light too.
Why do you think that? And that's based.
I'm looking at a polar bear pic, right?
One second.
No, I'm gonna show you with light. Go ahead.
You're reaching, dude.
No, Dan, Dan, let people talk.
Yeah, very, very quickly. So we know that refraction is based on the density of the object. Yeah, the denser the object, the more refraction that it will throw. Do you disagree with that basic premise?
I believe that you can adjust light through different mediums and get different effects. I'm asking us to share the same effects in the same medium. So it's meaningless.
No, I would actually like you to answer the question asked. Do you think that refraction is related to the density of the object the light is passing through?
I'm telling you that light moves at 10 and 17 miles in straight lines.
That's not answering my question.
That's what I'm claiming.
You're not even making a claim that's rational and usable.
Yeah, well,
may I make a suggestion?
Hang on, let Dress finish because I know
I'm done. If he's not prepared to address the question asked, then there's no point continuing to try and ask it. It means he's just being, he's just trying to divert from the question. So it's pointless trying to actually engage.
Who has questions? I believe it's flat earthers that have questions. You guys are just going by regular book.
Okay, so then why are you answering for us? Why are you not listening if you have questions?
I have a really easy way of showing you atmospheric refraction causing light to bend. Just take a good quality pair of binoculars or a good quality telescope or spotting scope, or absolutely best of all, a really good quality high magnification telescopic sight for a rifle, because that's got a fixed crosshair in it, and that makes this even easier. Set it on a bench so it can't move. On a hot day, get it focused at about 50. Get it focused at 50 meters. Okay, and watch whatever you are looking at dance around in the view as the changes in, as the micro changes in density across that 50 meters even causes the image to dance and jump about. Do it on a hot day across grass, and you will get apparent movement in degrees. Not, it will move it by huge greatest amounts. And I do this regularly because I'm a competitive rifle shooter. So I'm either looking at the spotting scope and I shoot I shoot competitive small bore bench rest at 25 meters and 50 meters with scopes with 30 and 40 magnification regularly.
Should do it at 100 yards on the small target and watch it move completely off the scope when the wind blows.
I'm actually saying 50 meters because that is such a short distance that it's an eye-opener when you see the amount of movement that you get at 50 meters, let alone anything longer. And the better the quality of your optics, the more movement you will see, and if you've got really, really good optics, I'm talking high-end Zeiss spotting scopes, for example, you will see variation, a movement of the target, even on days when you.
A simple question to ask, Alan, is: Dan, do you shoot?
No, I don't.
Hey Dan,
made up much thought.
hey Dan, do you see my screen right now? This is a very, very. I'll share the link and everything for you, so you guys can do this on your own. When I ask you what the index of refraction is, it's very important, and it's basically the main crux of what you want to be answering. You want to be showing. If you're asking questions, your question should be, how does light bend? How do we know where it bends and when? And this is how we know. We put it in systems that tell us. So if the refraction index is 1.55, that's what you're going to see with light. That's what your laser is going to do in that situation. A little closer to reality or the air, that's what you're going to see. That's just the reality of it. You want to talk about distance or the changing the into little pieces? Because like I said, different areas aren't going to be that set index of refraction. So if, for instance, right now we're in a vacuum. So as I go,
same conditions, different bend. Explain that.
No, God, see, no. Okay, Dress, I'm taking your lead. No, you don't understand it. What's the point?
Well, I didn't say I didn't understand.
No. You made it clear you don't understand it.
You're not taking it into account.
No. Again, I will say this one last time. Last time I'm going to say this too. So you keep saying same conditions, light bends. Why? No. If you don't know the conditions, you don't know the index of refraction used, then you cannot make that claim.
I'm telling you that it's shockingly amazing that the same light would produce a different bend.
Again, the light is not what changes it. It's the index of refraction in the median. So you saying that light, same light, doing something different means
I'm saying
nothing.
Same angle at twice the distance. Wow.
And guess what would change that? Guess.
Distance.
Density.
Matter of fact, show me first. Because, matter of fact, I didn't even think about that. Show me your straight laser.
Yes, because they said it wasn't even on a tripod.
Yeah, let's see that.
No, it wasn't. Hey.
But it wasn't mounted on a tripod, so you don't know the angle, and you don't know the divergence of the beam path or why that's important.
I have a question. Is the test you're talking to... Oh, he's on the phone. I hope he's not talking about the test with the big... That I think was just posted recently. And it was like on a big... It's like a big reflection, like a reflected material, I guess, that they're aiming at. Is that the one he's talking about?
I don't know, but I saw that one.
Because if that's the case, oh my God, guess fuck what? It's a curve because that laser beam was very high up in the grid pattern that material that they were using as a target. Yes. I'm just saying. That's just reality.
Can you guys think of any optical experiment that's worth a shit? Probably not. And I just want to
all of them are worth a shit.
I want to, but just Alan and Big Blue have a different opinion about what their research into radar.
Okay, but now you're kind of changing.
I've seen a third opinion.
And you wait, but wait.
I understand refraction. Get it into your head.
Okay, then what is the index of refraction for a vacuum? And if you don't know that, then you're lying again. Jeez, man, you don't get it. Like you're just saying shit.
A pack of matches. Do I need to know what was mixed with that sulfur?
If you were in the fucking woods and you needed to make a fire, you would need to know what type of fucking wood to use or rocks to use. Yes. You don't just go get sticks.
Sean, it's more basic than that. If you say you understand matches, you understand the process used to make the match.
Thank you.
If you say you know how to use a match, that's different. If you say you understand refraction, it means you understand what the angle, you understand what the index of refraction is and how to apply it, and the fact that the density of the medium is what that is based on, whether you agree with it or not.
Right. So let's say we account for the maximum.
Again, that's not there's no maximum.
Really,
man?
Oh. No. It changes completely based on temperature and a bunch of other data that you don't have or want to understand. In fact, the 11 page
no, crash. You said enough. Just stop right there. Dan, do you understand anything of what he just said?
Absolutely.
Then explain to us what the index of refraction is.
You have to understand as part of a team.
No. Hey, remember I said I'm going to hold your feet to the fire? Any flat earther making a claim? You just made a claim that you understand refraction. Explain it. No. Then explain it. Explain it. Explain it.
When I produce a bunch of fucking numbers and temperatures, what are you going to say to me, man?
Do it then. Please. I've been asking for fucking 3 streams that you've been on.
Fucking talk amongst yourselves. I'll go find it.
Jeez, you should have had it if it was part of your fucking argument.
Plug them all into the fucking calculations and see what they work out. It's that simple.
Right now,
I don't think you'll be able to find enough detailed data to actually calculate it.
The 11-page article he dropped the link to requires a whole fuck ton of data points.
I'm going to tell you right now what's happening. Right now, at best, he's going to go fucking Google index of refraction and then try to memorize what the fuck it is, and I guarantee he repeats it word for word.
I don't take sucker bets.
I'm sorry. God, there's got to be a flat earther in here that will agree. Yeah, I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
I'm not disingenuous, man. I'm just
very. You keep
no,
saying things like we.
Individual sites to get you the information you want.
No,
That's
you
all.
don't. You just have to explain it.
Okay,
You just talk.
Be quiet. Sydney Silver's going to have it on her site. Maybe the free group has it on their site, and maybe Nathan has it on his. But if you think I haven't seen charts full of numbers, you're wrong.
Charts full of numbers means you know what it is.
It means that we have the data you're going to require.
Jesus fucking Christ. I thought Chris was the worst.
We're not stupid. We're not stupid.
You're not showing
the problem is you made a claim that you understood it, not that your group.
Yeah, exactly. So your claim is that I have to know all of the universe of science, and I don't.
No. You claim to know refraction. I want you
to know shit.
You are a fucking liar.
But you said
God
it.
Damn it! I'm not even. Fuck that shit. Damn,
you
are by far the fucking worst.
Dude. There's a little chart, right? And I'm just saying we exceed the maximum refraction allowed on those charts.
That chart doesn't have a maximum; it's an average.
My language isn't
thanks, Monkey Sage. I really appreciate that. And it's what's up, party people.
I can't understand the basic start of that math, let alone working through.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, though, sir.
Yep.
I got charts and numbers here for fucking piston and rod calculations.
Hang on, stop. Hang on, guys. Hang on. This is what we're gonna do. Montreal, I know you had something to say a little while ago. Can we, Dan? We're done talking about this. It's very clear where we stand about this situation. Montreal, do you still have a question?
Yeah. Well, first, before I understood fully what you were saying, I was gonna suggest using a FLIR system, forward-looking infrared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then there's also a question that might diverge as well, correct?
It will be near infrared will be refracted the same as within very close amounts to the same as to the blue end of the spectrum, even so. Near IR makes very little difference to the amount of refraction. The problem we have is that visible, and if you go from near IR through to UV, I think it goes from around 800 nanometers of wavelength down to around 100 nanometers.
Will that be better than the laser?
Well, this is the whole range of infrared through to ultraviolet. It's a wavelength of 700 about 800 nanometers down to about 100 nanometers. I'm not, that's rough figures. That's not, it's not exact, but that's about the rough.
Okay, then I came up with another. I came up with another idea.
The problem is that means that if you have a pocket of atmosphere that is
shit about
1 millimeter in diameter, that's still tens of thousands of times bigger than the wavelength of the radiation passing through it. So it has the effect, the effect it can have on that radiation, the amounts it can refract that radiation because of the changes in refractive index becomes much bigger than say if we're working at around 30 centimeters of wavelength. Because
I have an idea to bypass all of this mumbo jumbo, all of this machinery. Tell me if this makes sense. For example, we can pick a site like the Toronto skyline, which we know for sure cannot be seen.
I'm so excited. Hey, Montreal.
Yeah.
We debunked that here, actually. Best thing in the world. If you go to Google Maps and you look from the beach across from like the Rogers Center, and you look at the Toronto skyline, there's a problem in every observation that no one talks about. There's an airport and a lighthouse missing in the observations.
Yep. You can't see it.
I'll show. I'll pull it up so you can see what I'm saying. But there's
doesn't crash into the water.
No, but there's literally some. It's just too much. I mean, you want to talk about some too much scene? There's nothing
you
seen.
Can't see it, can you? They're completely
it's bad.
Behind the curve.
I'm going to steal your sharing dress, and I'm going to pull this up. Everyone gets to see where I live real quick. There we go.
A long way from me.
There we go. So.
Oh, come on, farmers. It's just a cheap phone call to call me.
Okay, so here's this is the area. Now, most of those observations, I actually have a video if I need to show you. The observation is made from here, right around the Mississippi beach. And trust me, and I've already looked, and I can show you the triangulation of it. Anywhere in the view of the shore we're seeing, this view will still happen. This is what's missing. An airport, and on the one further away from the shore, there's a huge lighthouse there.
Is there not a road as well? Because I'm sure I've seen one where there's cars going along when someone went higher. There's not a road there too?
I think on the way out. I didn't really see it. I think when we were doing this, we were just like, whoa. And we didn't even know this was here.
So basically you're saying there's a lighthouse there.
This is the lighthouse?
Being seen when you do the observations from the other side. Is that right?
It's correct.
You can't see the lighthouse. You can't see the airfield. All of that is completely hidden.
That's a problem.
But isn't that normal according to the 8 miles per squared formula?
Not in those exact numbers, because it's again it's a layman's of the tangent. But I mean, yeah, that's exactly why.
We should be clear that 8 per miles, maybe it works up to, let's say, 500 miles.
It's way less.
Very inaccurate, right?
So we're going to use 100. We'll go 100.
So we shouldn't really, exactly. So we shouldn't really promote it, should we? So
no.
8 mile squared thing is not really good to use.
That's why I like to say it's the layman's way of explaining to someone who has no clue how the curvature works along with the tangent line. That's it. That's all it does. It does not. It's nothing accurate. It's nothing that we claim to prove. And it's literally just a layman's
used to
term.
be an old land surveyor's rule of thumb, and they only surveyed sort of very small parcels of land.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got the surveying I do when I do topos. There are offsets I have to put into those things. I don't have to do that because I don't do anything of that distance. I think the longest distance I've ever shot was like 3.5 miles. I'm nowhere near that size. So
it came to prominence because Roadbottom used it incorrectly in his 18 whatever the hell it was work.
Yeah.
It's just I keep hearing it resurfacing, so I think we should try to stamp it out if we can, wherever we hear it.
Well, if you use it, you got to make sure.
200 proofs.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, when you if it does come up, it's fine to come up because it is a useful tool. The problem is it needs to be very clear. It's a layman's way of explaining the tangent line, and also it's a way of very simply understanding the tangent line. It's not something that we're going to take out and go, we're going to measure across the United States with this. No one claims it. No one does it. Another thing, if you go to the curve calculator on Metabank or fucking most of the ones you see, there's one very distinct issue. It's on a very smooth surface. We don't live on that. Therefore, it's not concrete. It's not going to work as a concrete. That doesn't work. Sorry, it just doesn't work that way.
Okay, sure? How about if we find the point that we could agree on? Let's say we find that notion of water that we can agree on, or even there.
Well, we could go to a good.
Use the correct.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. My apologies.
No, I'm saying find a place where we both can agree on that so much is missing due to refraction, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can do like an experiment like what Rob Skiba did and see what we're looking at, right? And then just take a camera and film it all the way to that point and see what results are. I think this is the way you can resolve your issue with Dan the Waterman.
Explain one more time, because I get what you're saying, but I don't know the Rob Skiba experiment, so it's kind of like a
okay. It's simple. Find a place where you and Dan could both agree on the heights, do the numbers, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll say, okay, this much should be missing, or whatever. We shouldn't see that much. Then take a camera.
Come up with our hypothesis, basically.
Point. Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like a test, but it's more like an observation.
Agreed. Yeah, so, that's agreed upon, and then there's no. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you and Dan both agree on it, and then just take a boat with a camera, and go towards it without stopping the camera, and then you'll see if there's any change, and you'll know who's right and who's wrong. You won't have to argue about anything.
Sure. Problem
is,
of
course, be following the curve, won't you? In doing that.
Well, that's why you wouldn't.
On the boat.
You wouldn't. Yeah, but you would have to have a. That's why you would like use reflectors or a target, basically. Here's a problem though, Montreal. What if he doesn't understand what we're doing? How would we come to an agreement on elevation or those aspects?
It's simple.
Well, you're both going to be on the shoreline. I'm sure Dan is a reasonable guy from what I heard. He'll agree on it if you both. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, it's simple. You can take a vehicle off the water, watch it go away, and if it goes away, you're going to claim it's going over a curve, and basically it's going to go off into cloudy conditions. So we were going to choose a day. We don't even need a vehicle. There's oil rigs and tankers right off normal routes that we can measure, and we can see them all the time. I'll get you the shots. And Catalina Island's 33 miles away. If I can see the harbor at night, harbor lights, there's a hotel there. It's over with. If I fail, I'll let you know. But that's the only thing I can do is mess with infrared now, because you guys don't believe in anything else.
You're making blanket statements. Please don't do that. Don't say we, because you're not even making statements that make sense, let alone our beliefs. Please.
I can't argue with your mentality. I can just tell you what I can do.
Okay.
And the suggestion of FLIR has already been done in the form of infrared. Am I correct? Is that the same thing? Yes.
Okay, well,
we can't. Use your eyeballs.
We can't.
Well, forget FLIRs.
Yeah, we can't.
Why were we forgetting FLIRs? It was a great idea. I produced evidence of that in 2 seconds. That's not good enough.
But it gives you no advantage.
Oh, because refraction. When are you guys going to pull that gravity's pulling the light? It's not refraction. When are you guys going to pull that shit?
Yeah, well, see, you don't understand how that works, so that's why we will never use that for that.
You need it.
What do you mean you need it? See, again, your argument doesn't. Your argument is literally either trying to trigger somebody or just pure, intellectual dishonesty. It's just literally what you're doing right now. It doesn't make sense.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. All these sightings over water that's curved, I think, have probably reached an impasse, right? Because there's a lot of excuses and reasons, and both sides, and muddy air and observations that aren't consistent. I don't think a lot of progress is going to be made, unfortunately, in this particular area.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right?
The one thing that everyone needs to understand, basically, when you say something like, "You guys want to go out, do this test on a cloudy day," but what we should do is wait for a clear day, is not understanding that the reason we have an index of refraction is to calculate these situations and atmospheric effects. You're not I don't know if you're purposely not getting it. I don't know, but that is ultimately why the index of refraction is such an important topic right now when you're talking about what you want to do, Dan. The fact that you don't know what it is alarming, and I think Montreal's idea is a wonderful idea. The problem is once we get there, How do you fact check me? You can't.
Big Blue, I need you to calculate a 100-foot mast and a 100-foot mast again and tell me at what point we should be able to see, because you just said something at 70 miles range. If we both have a 100-foot mast, does that cover it? I'm just trying to do, I don't need my own poor evidence. I'm just trying to work with actual repeatable science.
Then listen, because we're trying to explain to you repeatable science.
With 200-foot mast, which is as tall as any mast we're going to have on any boat, at what distance is that going to work? Is 70 miles going to?
You're going to put a 200-foot mast on a freaking on the Salton Sea? That makes sense. Okay,
no,
just checking.
Talking about stuff you don't believe my presentation.
Stop saying that. Don't say I don't. You don't know me. You don't know how what I feel or whatever.
Let's just get out of what I do and get back into commercial claims of existing radar systems.
Hang on. How about this? And if you're going to continue to act as if what we're explaining to you or trying to explain to you is just our belief or just bullshit, you need to be.
It's not bullshit. You guys came up with infrared. I produced it. Did you look at it? You've seen it?
Do you know what I'm? Do you understand what I'm talking about, Dan?
Now you guys don't want to shoot that down.
Dan,
you shoot down lasers.
What are you talking about? No one shot down anything. You're ranting right now. What are you talking about, Dan? No, listen to what?
You said you didn't understand that you shoot down lasers and I move on. Then you shoot down sunlight, I move on. Now you're shooting down FLIR and I'm moving on to microwave.
In about a half a second, I'm going to mute you and I'm going to boot you off my shit because you're a liar.
I'm not a liar and I'm making sense.
Okay, do you want to know? Okay, then this is what we're going to do. We're all going to shut the fuck up. Every single one of us are going to shut up, Dan. Dan, every one of us is going to shut up. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to replay this fucking live stream so you can hear your fucking self sound like a fool.
I'm going to go get a pillow to entertain your ideas because you're a yawn. You're Sean. You're yawning me out.
You need another fucking bong load.
Why not? Well, in the meantime, the suggestion that we do something side by side is brilliant. Let's see if you got the guts.
I think part of the problem here is that one group says we see too far. One group says we see too far. One group says we don't. These joint observations,
that's the crazy part. It's not even these. It's him saying we're wrong. I don't know why, and I don't know how. Let's go do a test.
Right. Well, you need to really define the parameters of that test to make sure you didn't waste your time.
Thank you.
Do a test.
Now, doesn't that make sense? That makes 100% sense. That should have been his. He should be asking the questions so he can.
By the way, I'll give you I'll give you my view on what is a good test. Yeah, it's the one that Jesse's done and the one that I did that video on. Because actually, you don't need a huge body of water if you can find a smallish lake, and if you get up a little bit out of that murk. You can use a surveyor's level or theodolite, and you can backtrack on yourself. So you can survey from one side, from a level platform, survey from a level platform the other side, and you can see the drop. It's, about 10, 15 inches.
Matter of fact.
And you can see it from both sides, and you don't need hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. Yeah, you need
Dan,
about,
how's that test sound to you? Because instead of going to spend thousands of dollars on a laser setup, I have a theodolite. I'll bring it. Oh, I have a total station too. I'll bring that as well.
I welcome anything that we can do side by side.
Yeah, and you could both take the observations. You could both look through the theodolite, couldn't you, Sean? Right?
Absolutely.
And you've got a theodolite, as you say, Sean.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't introduce the total station till later.
I would.
You could get into an argument over GPS and everything. So I would just do the.
I would like to use that so we can have a topo of our area. So when we're doing our numbers, we have something to mark off of. It's a little. I don't even know how to.
So the simple way of doing it is the way that Jesse did it, which I liked. Right?
Yes.
What you do is I'll just explain it briefly so Dan can understand it, and we can all try and understand it. You take a body of water and you make the assumption that maybe that body of water is actually flat. Okay, so let's just say body of water. We know that water tends to find the shape of its container, so we'll say that's flat. Okay. From that water, we will create two levels, one on each side. Okay, we'll get a couple of rebars, we'll put them in, we'll take a spirit level, carpenter's level, and we'll make a little platform on each side. Okay, so these are two platforms at a set height, not much height, just above the water or at the water's level. Okay, so you know that you've got two platforms, both of which you believe are level with the water. And what you do is you take your point on your theodolite or your level just above that level. Let's say, I don't know, 7, whatever, 2 meters. Doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, whatever the height of your theodolite happens to be. And then you look through that in both directions. So what you're actually doing, you're sighting in both directions. Now, if that water is truly flat, because you've taken a little level from a platform that's a set level on each side, of course, you should make an observation that is exact, right? You look at the target, it will be whatever the height I said was, 2 meters. You look back from the other side and it should be 2 meters. Now, of course, if that water isn't level and there is a curve, then of course you will be out. You will not be looking at 2 meters. You'll be looking at whatever I said, 2 meters and 10 centimeters from one side and vice versa from the other. And it's a really nice little test. It's pretty simple. You don't need miles and miles or hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And you can do it yourself with a carpenter spirit level, an actual level, a couple of rebars and a couple of planks of wood.
Shit, you can do that with a peep sight if you really want to get down to the bare basics of it.
Yep.
I mean, that's
really
real
test,
rustic, but damn, yeah.
Yeah, and you get some nice pictures on it. And if you look at my channel, it's only got one video on it, but it has got that experiment in it. And I think Jess has explained it a couple of times on Sean's. I mean, it's Jesse's, not mine, by the way. It's Jesse's procedure and his methodology. And but I think it's a really good one.
And Jesse, and I'm going to tell everyone right now, if Jesse is probably the most experienced surveyor that I've ever heard talk, ever explain.
Yeah, certainly that I've ever met. Definitely.
It is a. I'm not gonna lie, and I've said this 1,000. I'm a fucking fanboy when it comes to it. That dude. Like, if I could just sit and listen to him talk about it for 4 hours in person, I would just love that shit. Like, I'm trying to get out to the next observation that I think him and Tim were gonna try to do something again. Whatever.
It sounded fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going. I don't care. Like, I really need to pick that man's brain. Like that. There's so much I don't know, and he knows. Hey, what's up, Chris? If you want to come in and save your buddy.
I mean, it's a really neat experiment. You can do it in a day, probably half a day. Yep, you don't need a lot of equipment. It's not very expensive, and certainly you can visually see it, and you can take pictures, and then you can both discuss the evidence.
And to one up and better that data, we should do it on multiple days.
Yeah, I mean, because of course refraction will be a small component. I think when Jesse did it, he made sure that it was long enough that the effect of refraction would not significantly alter it. But of course, refraction, even with the optics on the surveying level, will come into it.
Well, he knows he's able to apply the best times of the days. You don't want to do it at noon. You don't want to do it first light for it's. There's times you want to do it.
It varied quite a bit on the river he did it as well, because the water temperature, you know what I mean. You want it sort of, I think, as similar as possible or something.
I think George did a test last winter, where he was able to show that issue where over a frozen surface compared to during I think it was right after melt. I don't know what you call it, but he didn't have the frost anymore or the again.
Fall.
Yeah, and he showed how much that his laser bent up over because of the way. Go check out George. His name. I don't even know his last name. He also does some survey uploads that are pretty damn good.
Hanetiuk, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it. And Jose's got me just saying blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's very spelled name, isn't it?
And here's the main thing, because yes, Dan frustrates the shit out of me, but here's the reality of it. It's better to admit you don't know and get an understanding of it than to say you're wrong, and that's all there is to it. Chris, if you are in Discord still, check your Discord, because I sent you a link to the bunker. If you can't get on Discord, let me know right now, and then I'll send it to you some other way. I'll figure it out.
Is that Chris Berry or
yes, sir.
RTH?
Chris Berry.
All right, okay, yeah, Chris is all right.
And I'm going to say this right now.
Have you guys seen the Rob Skiva video?
I try not to. Honestly,
you got to see this one, Sean.
After his balloon things, and then I know which one pissed me off. He did the skyline thing with the lensing, and here's the problem with that. It was a good one test, but you would have to apply multiple lenses to compare it with our atmosphere. You know what I mean? But I don't know what test you're talking about, so I was just saying.
It's just a Skiba Fresnel lens, is that?
Yeah, that one. It's very disingenuous.
Yeah, ludicrous. Anyway, which one are you talking about, Montreal? Which excitement have you got for us?
This is the one at Toronto skyline, where they're on the other side in the States, and they make the visual, and then they put the camera on it.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Without stopping, he takes the boat, and it goes all the way to Toronto, and nothing changed. It stayed exactly the same. There was no refraction. There was no nothing. They saw from one side.
I mean,
to the other side.
I guess I'll explain my issue with that. Refraction is something that obviously alters. It's progressive depending on distance. So if you take that boat and then suddenly you kind of, take the journey and you're filming live, or with your eyesight even, going live, I think it's a bit of a movable feast. So I'm not sure necessarily myself what that proves, right? Because obviously the refraction at 1 meter is going to be pretty well zero. Whereas obviously the refraction number of miles is going to be different. So, and the Toronto skyline is one that I think, we've seen it unusually. Sometimes it can be really pushed up there, but most of the time it's kind of a lot of it's hidden, right? And any, I think, reasonable person would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
Though I know I suspect some, Chris has just joined, maybe won't agree with it. But, that's my view, is that it does look very unusual. We see far more of it than we should on occasion. I've seen the pictures. It's impressive. But that's not the case every day. Otherwise, people would be showing us those shots every day.
Right.
Well,
and again,
but let's think about that critically. Why it wouldn't be that way every day? What can we think of?
Well,
Is the curve changing?
Well, if you look at the
we know
Josh
the curve is
Nowicki,
changing.
If you look at the Josh Nowicki Chicago skyline, the flat earthers always show a still shot, and they don't tell you that it's from a video. But if you go back to the video, you can see it where the city stretches. You can see more of it, and then less of it, and none of it, and it's at times distorted, and the buildings look stretched, but they never look normal. You can never take an actual picture of the Chicago skyline and lay it over top of it and have it fit correctly.
And that's
I'm telling you, Rob Skiba did that. It's on video. You can go and check it out.
So my key issue with all of that, Schrodinger's, my key issue with all of this observation, which is why I don't tend to get involved in these debates, as you'll notice around observation, this kind of observation very much. Observation I love, but not this kind of observation. I'll tell you my reason is this, I know that the stuff is distorting, as you say, and it moves shape and it changes and it stretches and it moves. For me, those are anomalous observations. And so therefore, I think it's very difficult to pick anything out of that data. And so a lot of the observations I've seen that are very contentious are where people are claiming various different things about it. Both sides, right? So both sides claim various things.
And
for
it's
me,
disingenuous to take a screen capture basically from a video and say, hey, look, this is what it is. It's disingenuous because whoever originally did that knew they were taking a still capture from a video.
The news did that.
In doing science
The
and observations,
weatherman did that.
That
Showed it
weather
on
guy did
TV.
that.
The weatherman.
Agreed. It probably was the weatherman or the crew there. So
Schrodinger's.
it probably was the weatherman or the TV crew.
I love how Schrodinger says, "Oh, what the flat earthers won't tell you is." Like it's some grand conspiracy to not tell you that the picture came from a video.
Calm down.
Well, here's the thing. It's a thing. Here's the thing. If it makes a difference between a video or showing a still image, it needs to be said. And if you don't understand that there's a difference,
then blame the weather guy.
Huh? Oh yeah.
Blame the weather guy where we got the image from.
Sure. So let's move on. So my view is that when we see these odd dancing images that are floating all around and moving around, we can look at them. They might be able to tell us something, or they might be able to tell us, not very much. I don't think anyone is necessarily hiding anything. But for me, when I do science, I try to get rid of the anomalous elements, right? If I'm doing measurements, if I've got anomalies, I go, oh, there's probably something wrong with my method, or I'm doing it wrong, or whatever it happens to be. So that's just why I'm personally not so interested. But I'll shut up and let others deal with it now.
Oh no,
But Tony, you're not getting it. You're not listening here. There's no dancing. There's no concertos. There's a site of a shoreline taken by one side. Then there's a video, and the boat goes all the way to the end. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's no dancing. There's no
what do you think that's showing
bouncing.
you? Yeah, hang on, I've heard you, Montreal. What do you think it's showing
One second, Tony, because I've just got a very quick question to ask. So the last video that Rob Skiba published on Flat Earth, as far as I can see, is called The Revolutionary Radio Project with Mark Sargent. enclosed flat Earth theory. And his opening statement is, yes, I really do still believe the Earth is a sphere. Next.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the video he made.
Oh God, Trust
on that day.
Wait.
I like the video that Rob Skiba made with his balloon where he showed curvature.
Yeah, it's always a good one.
I like that one too, Schrodinger. I'm not throwing it away. I'm just saying that giving you guys something to think about.
So anyway,
something's wrong here.
Coming back, Montreal, to my question, what do you think it's showing in Rob's video that he's on one side? It's very clear. He then drives the boat to the other. What do you think that's showing? So I can understand it.
Of course, sure. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's showing that the Earth is flat. I'm just saying that what he's showing is that we're seeing farther than what we should be. So that should give us pause.
Okay.
At the very least, it's bigger than what we think.
Okay. What about the observation that I showed you guys 15, 20 minutes ago?
What does it show us again?
Oh, it's the Toronto skyline. Oh, we debunked the crap out of that. Bad.
I haven't seen it. I wasn't watching.
Oh, the airport thing.
Yeah, that's bad.
There,
yeah, that's bad. That's bad. I mean, I'll show. You haven't seen it, Chris. I'll show you. I mean, it's not even like a throw it in your face shit. It's just reality. Oh, yeah, yes, sir. What's up?
Even that the airport should not be seen according to the calculations.
No,
I don't see the point there of the airport.
No, because they have a tower.
What rate of refraction did you plug in to calculate that, Montreal?
I don't think there'd be very much either. I mean, I think it's like 30.
I didn't do any of it. I'm going by what people are saying. I didn't do it myself.
No, I see what he's saying.
They're working on 8 miles per.
I would say, Montreal, you're right in the overall airport, but I mean, there's going to be towers and you know what I mean, the control tower and everything that would still be there in that situation.
So we've got two.
It depends how high the tower is, Sean.
Is this airport one different to the Montreal one? Or is it the same place?
Same place. I think it's just right across.
All right, can you show us the one, Sean? Sorry, I missed it as well. Apologies.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I'm actually like sitting here looking at it, pointing at it, and I haven't shared yet. My bad. I apologize on that.
And you can probably see it all in it.
Oh yeah, I'm just watching it and just which
I always like the visual aids, right? I always think it helps the audience.
Oh no,
I've just got to retract a statement. For some reason, Rob Skiba has, unlike everybody else on YouTube, his videos in the reverse order. So the last one I thought I was taking was actually one of his early ones. So Chris, I withdraw the point. I made a mistake.
There you go, Russ.
Honesty.
You're like Ranty. You're
Now,
rushing to
only
judgment.
would admit that the ball is beyond to something.
No, we only admit what we are actually wrong about.
Chris, we agree on that. Well done.
Okay.
Cat, I just posted a link to that chart I was talking about off air earlier.
I think that was a Freudian split, by the way, Chris.
Okay, so
I didn't hear you.
Hold on, you posted a link to what?
That compression compensation chart I was talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah, type that shit in the chat, cool. Damn it. I'm just fucking with you guys. So, Free Minded came on. He's a flat earther. Came on and showed us an observation of either I think it was a friend of his, I'm not 100% sure, but she had taken the Toronto observation, and what you see is literally the skyline. You see the skyline to a certain point, but more importantly, it's focused on the Rogers Center. And the reason for that is because it's like a white building basically compared to everything else. And the idea is that that shows no curvature based on the distance.
Can I ask a quick question? I see a lot of these pictures, Sean, of Toronto and of that building. Do people do that because there's a populated area on the opposite shore and it's very noticeable? It's very photogenic?
Yeah, it's a big observation that you would think you would only see, they're gauging on the fact that if they see that and it's a globe, they expect to only see half the buildings or something if it was a globe, not understanding that you have to add refraction into it, because again, it's the major reason we see different views during different times. Go ahead, Chris.
But it's the kind of distance where you basically wouldn't really expect to see much. It's very photogenic. You're on one shore. There's lots of people who live in the area. I can't see what the opposite shore to Toronto is, and so they're all taking these pictures. Is that I'm understanding? Because I don't know that area of America. I've not been.
See, here's the problem. If you live in Toronto and you do this observation, you know something's missing, and that is the issue. There are. It's kind of hard for me to answer this question because I'm in a spot right now where I don't trust flat earthers because. I mean, I was a flat earth for 2.5 years. I know the rhetoric, and the path a lot of these people are going on are just bullshit.
You're going around you're not answering his question at all.
I'm 100% answering his question. I just told him, if you live in Toronto, you know there's an issue. And do I trust the flat earthers that are making these observations? No.
What does that mean, though? You know there's an issue.
Oh yeah, Chris, you ready? So the observation was made. See where my cursor is?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where the observation was made, and we know this because there was actually someone in the chat that was verifying these locations, and this he's the one who pointed it out. But when I zoom into the Toronto area, you see these two islands?
That's Toronto City Airport, isn't it?
It's
not the international. The international inland.
It's Toronto Island, Center Island. Yeah, Toronto Island.
So that's going to be Toronto City Airport.
It's this.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to this island closest or furthest from the skyline, and this is what we saw, Chris. Do it again. Where am I? I think I'm on the right spot. Oh, there it is. There's a freaking lighthouse in between. See that right here? Oh, like that. My bad. There we go. Okay, perfect.
I remember this conversation.
There's your lighthouse. Right? That's
Okay.
the first island. The only time I was able to do it, because I couldn't get my my program to come up. I believe the only number I could get was 86 feet off the line. So I'm gonna say, guessing, 100% guessing for an accurate number, maybe 100 feet off the shore. Because the way Google is in Google Pro is it doesn't give you the 100% accurate. You have to look down and it gives you approximate. But because we're near the shore,
elevations are not super accurate.
Yeah,
anyways. Blue
but that's a tower. I mean, that's a lighthouse.
Yeah, it is.
We do know that. We can't. No one's going to refute that.
You know, there's something funny about the skyline.
Mm-hmm. It's all bent.
Oh yeah. That's because it's freaking Google, and I'm in that little.
That's because that's because they're using a wide-angle lens.
Okay.
For Google Maps.
And then let's see if we can get here where the tower is.
So basically, we should have seen this lighthouse. Should be in this photo.
Lighthouse, and Montreal did raise a good point. As in for the airport, there's probably only going to be the tower. Again, I've never.
Flat, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't been here before, so I don't know what these buildings are. I don't know. You know, what is that?
There's very little. If it's what I remember, and bearing in mind it's 16 or so years since I was last there.
Yeah.
About 15 or so years since last there. It was all pretty much 2-story buildings.
Yeah, because I'm looking. This is the only other real structure on the airport island, and that's small.
The lighthouse is called the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse, Toronto.
Yes. No, that one is. We're looking at the Tommy Thompson Lighthouse, and if there's another lighthouse on that island,
there's another lighthouse. If you go over,
on which island?
So it's on the big island where the airport actually there. Over more to your left, and just at the southerly point if south is. Down towards
it's probably quite treacherous, isn't it, for ships there? So I guess that's why we got several.
Okay. So it's going to be somewhere in here.
Yeah. So I think it's just where that label is.
This one or this one?
Oh no, it's not. So you see where that kind of. So if you go inland.
Okay. Here we go.
There you go. You got it. That's it.
Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. Right. Okay.
So that's another referencing point we've got because we should be able to get the stats for that, which I'm just trying to find out now.
And have we got the picture that the person took with the stuff missing?
I'm gonna actually I have it on the other screen. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Sure,
I'm gonna pull the video. It's a video, and
it's a video.
Yeah, I know him, so I'll play it. I have no problem playing it. and we don't need sound.
Did you know that the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse is the oldest existing lighthouse on the Great Lakes and one of Toronto's oldest buildings? There you go.
Address. You want to Google search those and see what the
1808
and find out.
Well before the mud flood, then, yeah.
Find out if the height of those. Yeah, what's up, sir?
Hey, I have to go soon.
I'm pulling it up right this second. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize.
25 meters is the height for the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse.
I was wanting to talk a little jujitsu if you had minutes.
Go ahead right now while I'm pulling this up. Go ahead.
Are you officially? Do you have an official IBJJF belt?
No, I don't. My coach runs his own tournaments, and he doesn't like them, so I don't roll with him.
So you never like. But if you had to guess, like based upon your experience, would you be a blue belt, a purple belt?
Oh no, yeah. I'm a blue belt in gi, and I would be a purple belt in no gi.
Okay, so I went to class last night, and I rolled with a blue belt, and the first 2 times I rolled with him, he just completely destroyed me. Like he would sub me in like 30 seconds, right?
How long? So do you know how long he's rolled for?
I think 3 or 4 years.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Chris, just a quick question for you. Have you learned Oso Togoshi yet?
Sorry?
Oso Togoshi.
I don't even know what the fuck that is. Maybe something. What is it?
It's a jiu-jitsu throw, but it's originally a judo throw.
Oh, judo. Oh, yeah,
so it's probably Japanese.
I learned Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. We in America,
don't really know the difference.
Oh, there's a big difference. It's Japanese is a way more judo involved. You got to realize this, Chris. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, very young.
It's all about getting the man down. But the reason that I say that's actually a throw worth learning. It's quite an easy throw. It's one of the judo hip throws.
Yes, it's almost a basic one.
Oso Togashi.
Just look up judo throws and you'll find it. It's easier that way.
It's probably one of the first 10 you learn.
Mm-hmm. It's the one where you'll step in and put your hip right into theirs and flop them over. It hurts too.
And the idea is you actually hit them hard enough with your hip to take their feet off the floor. That's the best type of throw for that one.
It's a leverage throw, Chris.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you've gone in and you've got a high grip with your left hand and a belt grip with your right hand, and you hip throw them, you can actually lift them up to shoulder height before you drop them.
So you're grabbing their collar, their the end of their sleeve, end of the sleeve, inside.
You can go to the end of the sleeve. You can also go around the back of the neck, pretending that you're going to go for a full Reaper.
I'll take your back if you do that shit. Don't do that.
Yeah, I know you're right.
That's what the. But you got to remember, he's fresh. He's barely a white belt, so we can't. Don't say that stuff. If you're going to do a throw like that, you're going to grab the back of his. You're going to grab his belt at his spine.
My preferred technique is called carrying a pistol.
Yeah, on a boat.
That's highly effective for the first 7 to 15 people you face.
Anyway, Chris, you were going to go on to tell us what happened after the first 2 rolls.
Yes.
Yeah. So last night, my 3rd roll, and I did way better. Like things started clicking, and but the thing about it is, and I know the answer is I should have asked him afterwards, but I kind of was too nervous to. I wanted to ask him, like, is it typical for higher belts to go like to roll at 40%, 60%, 80%?
That's why
while I didn't sub him, he was on top of me a couple times. I rolled him using some maneuvering and things, some technique. And every time I did it though, he would go like, "Hey, nice," or "Good job," while we were rolling. So I just assumed like I really did it.
Here's what it is. That's why this was the main reason I asked how long he had been rolling. He was letting you.
Being nice.
Yeah, he was being very nice. In a sense, he shouldn't be. No, Chris, trust me. You don't have a shot in hell against a blue belt right now. You're too fresh.
No. I'm not saying I do.
Oh no. I'm just saying.
So I felt I did way better than the first 2 times.
Put it this way.
But that's
everything you did correct. He's not giving them to you, but he's allowing you to get your technique down. It's
a confidence builder.
Yes, it's what any belt above you, no matter where you go, that's their goal. That should be their goal. Now, you're going to come across guys who go hard, period. Most likely guys who do a lot of tournaments, because that's all they really know, or people that came from wrestling. But
could we pause this, Shawn, at about 1 minute? I'd like to take a bearing to see where the lighthouse should be on the foreshore, in line with those two tall buildings. Can you see the main spire? Can you see the main spire? Right. Okay. Let's just zoom in.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You want to get as wide as we can.
What I mean? Yeah. So see that spire, right? You see the spire.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, if you zoom in a little bit, so keep going the video, so I don't know when they zoom in. Can you see there's two buildings, not twin towers, but there's two? No, keep going a little bit. Sorry. Yeah, there. Can you see between the white buildings? So right, see the white building? And can you see the big tower, the spire, the needle?
Yeah, the
Can
needle.
you see between it? There's kind of like two larger buildings in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
so
like
if we could
that.
just if we could look at the bearing on that, because we should be able to identify them, shouldn't we, on Google Maps?
Okay.
We could work out where that lighthouse should be. Do you understand what I'm? Where
Soy
I'm
Boy
coming from,
Junior's here.
Okay, so
sorry.
Soy Boy Junior.
Let me find that Roy Center. I think that's it right there. Okay, Roger Center's there. Space Needle, or the Space Needle, I don't even know why I call it that. Where would the needle be? I'm pretty sure. No, I don't think it's called Space Needle. I think I just said that randomly.
Okay, so the white building is actually a dome.
Yeah, that's the Roger Center.
And then you've got two buildings sitting behind it. So I am currently just sitting on the island near the corner of the airfield. And I'm looking almost directly northeast.
Do you want to share your screen for a second?
Let me screen share.
Yeah.
You're gonna screen share.
Then we can go through that video. I'll put also put the video in the chat so you guys can have it.
And then we can just scrub through the video. And you see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to work out where we should be seeing.
Absolutely. You're trying to pinpoint where she is, and
so hopefully you can see my screen.
Right.
Carlos must have arrived.
Hey, Chris, you gonna be around in like 45 minutes?
Probably not.
Okay. Then tomorrow around the same time, I'll even stream a little later if it will help you, and then we can just have a hangout. We just I'll send you a link, and you can pick my brain as much as you need to.
So that would be Carlos the Pagan.
Soy Boy Junior.
And I'm gonna allow that.
I get it.
I'm gonna allow that too because
See,
Carlos has been very. Go ahead, I'm
you
sorry.
near where that girl was, the lady was, whatever.
Because I don't think he
they're
is.
the same building.
Oh no.
You could get confused.
He's on the airport island.
Right.
So he's to the left of what I was showing.
Where do you think the lady was who took the photo?
Oh, we know where she was.
All right. Okay.
Go to.
If we could get on a similar bearing to her, we could then zoom in across the water.
Okay, so I can take myself over to Thingy Lighthouse.
Yeah.
If that's the point.
Yeah, go there, and I can tell you exactly where. We had Dark Star was in the chat, and Dark Star had actually been to the beach, had been to the location, so he was able to.
So you see what I'm trying to do, Dross? I'm trying to line up.
Is he a baller?
Between the beach where she was.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah,
no, leave there. You're gonna go back across. You're gonna.
That's exactly where it is.
No. You want to go across go across the area. You're on. Oh. You gotta go to the other side.
So, Josh, we've got 3 points. We've got the needle, and then some other points we're going to look at in a sec. We've got the lighthouse, and then we've got the shore where she took the picture from, or video. So I'm trying to put you on the shore where she took the video or picture from. Then we know where the lighthouse is. Do you see what I mean? We can fly on that.
I'm just taking an angular bearing, so this puts me at about.
I'll tell you where to go.
37 degrees.
Okay, cool.
The beach we were told to go to was.
That's it.
I'm going there right now. Go to.
Tell me what,
I'm zooming into it.
am I going to the floating bridge, Tommy Thompson?
No.
Still going across. Yeah. Go to.
Do you see what I mean? Where she was?
Conzelman Estate.
Are you with me now on what we're going to do?
So if you go down to where it says Conzelman, whatever, it's a estate winery. Now, it's okay. This is literally, and Free-Minded agreed. It's between that line you see on the right, the state the border, and see that the land de Partag, that little jetty looking area. The observation happened in between there, and Free-Minded and Darkstar, who said he's been there, said the best they can give you is in that area, because she doesn't turn around or anything.
So that's good enough, right? So roughly we're in the right place. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
If you actually look on, we watched the video
now,
again,
if
you'll see the
come
side.
back out, if you come back out, Druss, just briefly of that, and you put a point on that beach, so we know that that's roughly where she. Is that where? Yeah, is that the same place where you just were?
Yeah, that's
where the winery is. Brilliant. So
Yeah.
if you put a point there, if you zoom back out loud, we put a point from there, and then you put a line going to the Space Needle or whatever it's called, and we can see if that goes through. See if it goes through the lighthouse, or is the lighthouse on the right or the left?
I need to switch to Google Earth to do that.
Oh, I thought you were in.
No, I was just on maps because I'm lazy.
Oh, okay, all right.
And it's good for a rough sort of gauging.
All right, you've not got a measurement thing on there, so we could just stick a line down.
Let me just orientate this to the north, so I'm around at the right thing.
And for the record, Carlos, anytime.
Carlos already left?
No, he's still here. No, in the chat he said he wanted to roll.
Let's go and get that build while I'm here.
Our roll against big.
Carlos, do you have a build?
And with Grace.
Why does it look like I play when Carlos enters the chat?
And that's the other thing, Chris. Don't play that belt thing so much, because what's going to happen is you're going to be a white belt eventually with a blue belt level, and you'll start realizing like.
Has anyone else got Google Earth open?
I can. Yeah.
No, I'm mobile at the moment.
It's Shawn, I get it. It's just I'm not trying to play that game. It's just a way to sort of quickly deduce how long or how good someone may be.
I actually really do. I think I can tell 100% you're into it.
I'll tell you my favorite story ever, which came into martial arts. One of my mates used to be really good. I'm just going to do this very quickly. Okay. He was a black belt Dan judo, and he used to actually fight for the British Olympic team. And he used to study at a place called the Budokwai in Essex, which is a really good judo club.
I know that.
And he very kindly took me there. Now, I hadn't done judo for probably about 12 or 13 years by that point. And I only ever got up to a blue belt in judo. So he goes in there and he starts whispering to all the black belts, saying that I'm basically fucking with them and I'm actually a down belt.
That's fucked up.
And they threw me around the mat like a fucking ragdoll. Submitted me left, right, and center. So at the end, and I told one of the guys, I said, I'm not a black belt. And he said, oh, Steve said you were. And I said, I want my next match against Steve. Now, bear in mind, Steve's about a good 8 inches taller than me.
Oh, that's leverage right there. That's a good thing.
I also know his secret.
So, Alan, if you could just put a line in while they're chatting about that between that beach.
He's got tickly ribs.
What the
winery beach. Just put a line, between the winery beach and the big needle, just so we can see which way she's looking, and then we can work out.
Sorry.
It was called Kungalara. If you change to just the non-satellite view, you'll be able to see it. It was called Kun began with a K.
Yeah.
So if you click on layers, there's a layers thing somewhere.
Something Estate Winery. That's what it was.
Yeah. Where's the layers thing that you can turn the layers on and off? I can't see it. Can't really see your screen that well.
Excuse my French or non-French.
So someone who's got the map up like Joss, could you just tell them what the name is?
Yeah, I'm just going back because I fucking shut the map down like a dickhead. It's all right, it won't take long.
Because it's really hard to make.
It's called Konzelman Estate Winery, and Konzelman is spelt Kilo, Oscar, November, Zulu, Echo, Lima, Mike.
Slow down.
Okay.
Konz. Start with that.
Konz.
And then do a search.
Go. Search.
Hey, Chris, after we finish sharing this,
there you go.
I'll show you the throw, because I actually just found one of my uploads that I actually did one. It's actually a shitty one, but I did it anyway. But I can't show it to the stream.
Of course. So that's perfect. If you can just
send it to me to watch now or
not? Yeah. I'll do that. It's better.
Just pull that across, Alan. Perfect. Thanks. If you just zoom in there, brilliant, and find that spire thing.
The space, is it Toronto Space Needle?
Yeah. Anyone know where that is?
It's that building over by there.
It's to the right of the dome.
Yeah.
Right of the dome.
It's hard to see though because
that round thing.
Yeah, it's small compared to the whole line.
Is that it? Is that
No,
it?
no.
So it's to the right of the dome. Can you see the city place there, Alan?
Okay, hang on, stop. I think I see it. Go back in because I saw it.
Go back in, and I can show it to you. So you see that block that's sort of there. It's just there, just to the right of the dome.
Yeah. So go left.
Is it circular to the right of the dome?
No,
is it at like 2
No,
o'clock?
it's not circular. That's Roundhouse Park.
Okay,
So
so it's
just
not at 2
above,
o'clock.
just to the north of Roundhouse Park. There it is.
Okay,
Oh, there we are.
Oh shit.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you really don't notice that thing.
You don't, do you? It's funny, isn't it? Right, brilliant, Alan. So if you could just zoom out a little tad right now, and we go and find that lighthouse and see if the lighthouse was on the right or the left, and how much.
The size of those sharks.
She was, what she was filming with her P900.
I time stamped it, Chris.
All right, thanks.
Sean, if I can
Alan?
make a correction.
Yeah,
no,
sorry.
me.
Yeah,
Brilliant. If you could just zoom in, Alan, on that like island bit, those islands. That's brilliant on those islands. Oh, zoom in on those islands, and let's just see if it's left or right of that bearing line. Who knew where the lighthouse was? It was
It's or that one, yeah. Sorry.
So the Tommy Point Lighthouse is to the right.
Yeah, it's a second.
The other lighthouse, the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse, is to the left. That's where the Gibraltar Point
So
Lighthouse.
how much to the right would we need to be looking, roughly?
What far? Go to the other island. Other island.
It's on the other island. No.
Can we see what?
Back out.
Go up.
Go back, Alan.
Zoom out, and then move to the northeast.
There you go. Yeah.
Sorry,
see,
east,
East.
not
Go east.
That
Go
little
east,
portog right there.
Or drag it to the left.
So basically,
back.
When
No,
we look...
keep going further.
Yeah.
It's that island that's just on screen. You've gone the wrong way.
You've gone the wrong way, Alan. Other way. It was to the east.
Oh, okay, that one.
Yeah.
That one. That's it. Brilliant.
So that's.
And where is it on that island? In the middle?
It's up at the north.
It's in that little point right at the bottom of that island.
So
I was gonna say there's. I'm getting confused.
Right
because
there, right there. That's where it's at. That's the one I was showing you guys.
Is that it?
Yes, it's in right there.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
okay.
Tommy Thompson Lighthouse.
So if we just come back out a little bit, Alan, now, right? And so my idea was this: if we put a line, another separate line from the shore to that lighthouse, and see where it intersects the city, we can work out when we're looking at the city skyline roughly where we should look for the lighthouse. Do you understand my logic?
Okay, what I will. Oh, that's right.
So yeah, that's perfect. Work backwards. Go back now to where she is on the beach. Put that line in.
It's gonna use that as peripheral.
Yeah, I'm gonna work from. If I do it this way.
Yeah, you can see that.
Whichever way you like. Yeah, exactly. You can extend it forwards. So go from A through that lighthouse
there
into the city, and we can see where it intersects. Perfect. Yep. Brilliant. That's exactly what to do.
Sean, what's up with that guy's skull? It's like half green, half yellow.
Yeah, dude, there's some dirty people.
Keep going into the city. So go through that point that's on the tip.
Oh.
But go into the city so we can see where it intersects.
I know what you're talking
about. And then we'll. Because you remember on the skyline, we saw some things. We saw a big white building, and we saw. Thanks, perfect. Just drop it there, Alan.
That's a comp belt.
And now let's just see where we should see the lighthouse. We should see it's quite a way across, then, isn't it? Just zoom in now on where the Space Needle is and where our line intersects, Alan, if you could, please.
Yeah, let me just hit save on that.
Sure, of course.
On there, because then I can zoom around.
I hope everyone's following the logic of what I'm trying to do. I know I'm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But...
Yeah. So there we've got a line to the.
Yeah, and what's it near to? What buildings will we see? Could you go onto the island? And can we look along the line to see roughly where it intersects?
Okay, we're actually.
Before you guys go on, I just want to say something real fast. I apologize. I misspoke before. Rob Skiba did the Chicago skyline test, not the Toronto. My bad. I apologize. I posted a link on it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, the Chicago observations good, but.
Carlos, don't make me choke you, Carlos.
God forbid that we want any jokes, Carlos.
Dang.
We are far enough across from the Space Needle.
It's a long way across, actually, isn't it?
we're well outside of the high rise.
We are. We're well out of the high rise, aren't we? That's what I thought. And that's. I know we're saying we're not seeing the lighthouse, but I was trying to be fair to the flat earthers in the audience because I kind of had that instinct.
Oh no!
To the lighthouse because I missed it by maybe a quarter of a degree.
Yeah. But let's as I say,
I do want to say, Toady, I like your style. You know what I mean? Like,
so I'm just trying to be fair.
Oh,
right? Yeah.
Perfect, and that's why you have the floor. This is all you, man. I agree. I think it's perfect. This is exactly what Dan wanted, but we're all on the same page. See how that works?
Shawn, why can't you show that video? You don't want to show it, or you can't?
No, he's monetized, and it'll demonetize me. I can't show his.
See, I keep hearing conflicting things on that because if you do commentary over the video, then it should be under fair use, monetized or not.
It's very weird.
There's monetized channels that show the people's videos. I just don't get it.
It's what happens is it'll hit, and because so many people like that, every single match of that tournament is there or on that is channel, so everyone uses it their own. What happens is he doesn't see the individual person who's using his videos. He just sees his, because that Grappling X is his company. So it's basically his company's out there. So it's a different type of monetization. For me, I'm not set up for that yet. But there's I have to have a certain amount of time or sub. I'm not sure which one it is. But there'll be a point where if someone uses mine, the algorithms will find it and tell me personally. Otherwise, I got to go search for that shit. It's weird.
Couldn't you just not name it that? Name it something else and it won't find it?
No, it's in the video, the upload ID. That is the algorithm.
Okay.
Oh,
so
you want to hear something funny about the Joshua about the Skiba video?
Sure, but, okay,
it's just showing a single image from Josh Nowicki's time lapse, not the whole thing. But we knew that.
So moving on with this, just so we can put this one to bed. So Alan, we've now got a couple of bearings. We think it's quite a long way out. How far out do we think it is? And if we go back to Shawn's video that the lady took, we could just get an idea, could we, is it totally out of the central business district, or is it?
Oh, it's you can see this is Old Toronto. This is the downtown. Yeah, you got Old Toronto.
Could we get an idea of scale? Could we measure visually crossways? Yeah, how long from the tower to the big what's that big? The big white building. Do you see what I mean? Crossways.
Rogers Center.
So we could gauge how far across. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
From the tower across, we are looking at.
Yeah, there we go.
2 kilometers.
All right. So if you could just go back and take that line, but measure from the tower to the big white building that we did see on the skyline. Is that 1 kilometer or is that a quarter of a kilometer?
The big white building. I think. Let me say the big white building is the dome, which is pretty much 200 meters from the bottom of the tower.
Not on what we were looking at. We were looking at the space tower. And then, do you remember I pointed out there were those 2 things that looked a little bit like the Twin Towers to me, and then we went across. There was a big white building. So
in between them,
building must be something else. Should we just have another quick shift?
Well, no, because so the white building in that we're above that he's at is
the right of the tower.
To the right. Oh, okay.
Right. So just let's have another quick shift. Look, because I think those 2 towers are those 2 things that are at about 2 o'clock.
Do you want to see the video one more time?
Yeah, let's have a quick clip at the skyline there, so we can all agree on some noticeable things, and then Alan can look for them on the map, and we can work out, because we know our thing is now 2 kilometers across, right, where we should see the lighthouse. So we just need to work out the scale crossways, if you understand my logic. Sorry, I know I'm labouring this.
No, I'm enjoying this. Is good on the left or the right?
No, on the right. So space tower,
the tall one.
Go across. Can you see a big white building?
I know what the problem is. You know the big white. You know somebody said we're looking at a big white building and it was a dome. Actually, we can't see the dome.
No. We do. It's the same thing. That's the Rogers Center.
That's square because that looks square.
It's fraction. It's the refraction.
It's distortion.
It's the distortion.
Let's not worry about the direction.
It actually looks too far away.
I promise you.
But all right.
It's the only building like that.
let's concentrate, guys. On what we're trying to see the lighthouse. All right. So if we could just look across and work out what that big square white building is, because it's massive, isn't it? So if you go back, Alan, to yours.
I can tell you one thing: the lighthouse is currently off the right-hand edge of the screen.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Right.
Positive?
I'm
That's why I
sure.
wanted to get a measure, Alan, of see that white building there. If we could work out what that was, then we've got a scale. Yeah. See
The
that
one,
white building.
the one I'm on right now.
I'll tell you how to work out what that white building is.
Spiky bit on the top. So let me go back here.
So it's easy. Just go back to your map. Drop yourself down to where the lighthouse is. Yeah, into the Google Street View, and then look at the skyline.
I've got that building. I have got that building.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing, and you can go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. How far across is that then, Alan, on yours?
Presenting
2K or?
I'm pretty sure that's the building we're looking at. Yeah, because it's got a spiky tower on the top.
Looks pretty good. I agree. It looks pretty good.
You think that's the square white building?
Well,
no.
Yeah, with the spiky thing on top of it.
No, the square white building is the dome.
No.
Getting muddled up, guys.
Yeah, we're talking about one to the far right, and we're just trying to get a reference on with that one.
Oh, okay.
So, Alan, don't measure directly to it. You need to measure along the waterfront.
I'm just going to quickly share my side because I've actually.
Yeah, just hang on. Just so if you just go across, Alan, it's about what, a kilometre?
It's
less.
That's about. It's maybe 2/3 of a kilometre.
All right, so if it's 2/3 of a kilometre, then we need to multiply it by what, 3 to get to where your line is, your intersection. So we're about a third of the way there. We're a third of the way there. So then on Sean's view, we need to triple it, don't we? Does that make sense? Does everyone understand what I mean? That looks about a third of the way towards that red line.
Oh, I see. What
as a reference, Alan, is that the first Canadian place? As a reference?
Sorry?
Is that
the building that we were looking at is this one?
Yes, first. It's the first Canadian place. That's what I went to. So I just wanted to reference it so we're on the same page.
So we think it's the same thing. First Canadian.
100% is.
Those films there in the X-Files, didn't they? Where it's very windy, I think.
So,
I can tell.
The big white building with a spike on the top is owned by a company called BMO.
Brilliant. So that's all really good information, guys, but probably not hugely relevant. If we could go back to the video, Sean, and just look at the skyline.
Way between the two red lines.
A third, I would say. Do you think it's a third, or
it is pretty close to 2/3 of a kilometre, and the two lines are 2 kilometres apart.
So your yellow line, I'm positing, is about a third of the way there between the two red lines.
And I would say you're very, very, very close to being correct.
Fair enough. So there we need to look at Sean's view, and we now know the distance between the spike and that white building is about 1/3 of the way. We then need to add 2 more thirds, and we'll go off the edge. Yeah, we'll well go off the edge, won't we? You're right, Alan. We'll well off the edge because that's about halfway, a little bit less, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Is everyone following this? So
Yeah.
from the spike to that whatever the BMI building is, 1/3. Another third puts us virtually off the screen, not quite. So we actually has she got any shots where she goes further back then, so we could see the lighthouse? Let's see how she zooms in. Oh yeah, that's good. A little bit more if you could roll it for just a tad out, till we can see the white building. Oh, stop. That looks good. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I'm at that sort of square building that is just in a little bit. So go across with your pointer, and I'll tell you where I'm thinking the lighthouse is. So go across with your pointer to the right, if you could. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. More. Keep going. There. That's it. That's where I reckon the lighthouse roughly is on that sort of bearing. Because I'm measuring, and by the way I'm doing this is I'm going 1 to the white building, 2 to sort of the middle, and then actually it's a bit further than that, isn't it? I'm out. It's even more across. It's a little bit more across, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's actually well outside of the high-rise area of the city.
You're right. It's a little bit more across, isn't it? So basically, it's right on the edge. So the lighthouse, we would expect to see it right on the edge of that screen, but we can't see it, which is still the same point.
Yeah, I mean, even if we're looking at 2-story buildings at that airport or that island, I really feel like we should see something if it was flat.
Yeah, so we're seeing that high-rise building there, aren't we? So we should, if it was flat, we should see the lighthouse sticking up, I think. How high is the lighthouse, did we say?
It's a good guesstimate of 100. Google gave me 83, and I don't think it counted the shore.
So 83 meters, yeah.
I'm in feet, sorry.
I think you're probably not looking at.
Can I ask Tony a question?
30 meters at the most for that lighthouse on that island. It didn't look very tall at all. The other one, the Gibraltar Point lighthouse, that looked more like maybe.
That was 80 meters tall.
Yeah, he had the exact number on that one.
Exactly.
Tony, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Nothing much.
According to your calculations, let's say on a good clear day, how much of the skyline or any, if any, should we see?
This came to see you.
This skyline?
Yes, the Toronto skyline from the other shore.
I don't know. I've not looked at the calculations. I need
I
to look at.
From.
Oh, you're saying from what it'll look like? Because this is a zoom the way in right now. If you want to see what this is what you see on a normal with naked eye, that's what you see.
Because the weatherman says we shouldn't be able to see this. This is a mirage, right?
Well, if you're sitting there with the naked eye,
he says it's a mirage.
Yeah.
So do you agree with that or not?
So
hang on. I thought it's a mirage. It's a mirage. We shouldn't see this comment.
This is Chicago.
On the wiki, which is
Chicago.
Yeah, that's Chicago. And it would be the different time of day. No. And the two observations,
that was
two
the
completely.
Chicago one. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a different time of day too.
Yeah, so I think we keep. I do it too as well on Montreal. I think we keep muddling the two up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep mixing them up.
I do too.
From what I remember from when this has
me
been
too.
Before, based on the calculations with standard refraction, what we see is fairly close to what we would expect to see.
And because of that refraction, we're not gonna have a good point.
Because obviously the refraction is not, the refraction is not never an exact number, so it's always going to be within the margin of error.
Are these the same numbers you got in yours?
I can't remember.
Could we do a quick thing?
We spoke of.
So whoever's got the curve calc up, could you just stick in the height of the lighthouse just to see if we should see it or not? I'd love to know if we should see the lighthouse at 70 meters or not.
I can go there, but this is part of the video. This is the very beginning of it.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So if anyone has got, I'm sorry, I'm not on laptop, otherwise I do it. I'm not being lazy.
I'm going to it right now.
Put 70 meters into the lighthouse. It'd be really nice to know, wouldn't it, if we should see it? Because I kind of feel that we probably should be able to see it, and it would be a good observation, wouldn't it, to go to that vineyard and just point in the right direction, because we know it's more across from the
lighthouse. The lighthouse to the left, the Gibraltar Point, was 80 meters tall. But
that's a different one. That's
where is the Gibraltar Point? I thought
we didn't mark that one.
Two lighthouses up there. We need to be careful.
Island, isn't it? Somewhere.
Call it Airport and Lighthouse Island. It's just easier. Alan, I don't even know if you guys have a line to the other lighthouse.
No, that's why I wanted to put the other lighthouse.
It's on Airport Island.
Yes.
All right, Alan, stick the other one in.
To your left.
All right, when I've got to take off, I'm going to do the work thing.
Back towards.
Cheers, Schrodingers.
Yeah, you're gonna run into it. Keep going. You'll run into it.
Yep. You guys have a good one, Sean.
Thank you, sir.
I'll
have a good one, sir.
Yeah. See you, Crash.
Yep.
Keep the bacon going.
Take it easy, guys.
Right there. It is. Gotta go on. I think it's right here. Backside. Kind of far out.
Work day's over in the UK, and it's just had a nice gin and tonic, so it's the evening's looking good.
How very civilized.
My favourite friends on the flat Earth. Sorry, Ball Earth.
and I want to say, there's Chris is here, Montreal's here. There's no you're full of shits, and there's no you're asshole. Like, Dan, this is how it's supposed to go when we're doing a observation together.
I was Dan dropped to see.
Yeah, I know. I figured you would.
I would like to.
Oh, yeah. Well, Chris said he had to take off.
After we all finished, I have to say I had a really good conversation with Ali B.
Really?
Yeah.
I've said it before. He's a really smart dude.
Because we weren't talking about this shit. We were just talking in general.
Yeah.
Although
well,
we're both the
Is
same
this-
age, we've got actually quite a lot in common. So it was really nice to have a conversation with him.
Is this when we were talking about guns, or was this a different type?
This was after that was last night. We talked, and then it was just me and Ali in the conversation at the end, and we chatted for about another hour and a half.
I think also my conversations with Ali have varied greatly depending on maybe how much he'd drunk, to tell the truth as well.
I was
that's not snide. I'm not being snide. I genuinely.
No, he's a really smart dude. He literally that's why yesterday, I'm not sure if anyone who was here yesterday, but yesterday I called him on it because it's very obvious cause I know Ali. I don't care if he keeps saying I've heard him. I've talked to him. I've just sat and listened in for almost 3 years now. He's a smart man. Maybe he is drinking. Maybe he's bored. I don't know. But he's a talker. That's for one. Regardless, he's a talker. So that's what I was trying to say yesterday. But he's just I've had great conversations. So. No, Pete Shea is a troll. He does it on purpose. I know that for 1,000%.
Ali certainly seems to misunderstand an awful lot of things for a smart guy.
That's why I feel like he does it on purpose as well. I said something. I said it yesterday. I was like, I'm pretty damn sure you're trolling right now, And that goes for a lot of people that do that. So it's weird. But he's one of the people that does it, and I got respect for Ali. I've known him for a while, so.
So, quick question,
yes.
sort of connected to this: have we put now Spurs and gas pressure to bed? Because I've missed a couple of days because I've been working this week. It's been a busy week. So
Spurs in general needs to.
Sorry, what was the answer? Was that a yes or a no?
Yeah, most streams that he's been on don't want to talk about it at all. Jose even said we're not talking about atmosphere anymore.
Yeah,
and then
we put Spurs to bed.
Put Spurs to bed. Brilliant. So Spurs is in bed. He's tucked up.
Problem is he sleepwalks.
Gas pressure's done. Well, he has this way of just forgetting what we proved the day before, which is always quite
Toady, you've been in the servers. You know better. You've been at the server.
FBRS.
Okay, so
actually, I want to make a point here, and we quite often throw pejoratives out at people. We quite often get pejoratives thrown out at us. But this has been a really good conversation today, and I would actually like to say, these people should be referred to as flat earthers, not flatards or anything else, because I think flatards is a separate set. The same as there are people on our side that we can call globetards. Yeah.
Riley, Chemo, Quantum Eraser, Nathan. They're flat hearts. They're snake oil salesmen.
It seems to be a common trait that any flat earther called Nathan is like that. I don't know
yeah,
whether
crazy as fuck.
I think so. Rather than discussing characters, I think it's quite nice when we do investigate things like we've just done to look at the, because none of us know, right? We thought we should see the lighthouse. We're still not sure, I think, on this lighthouse business, are we? Whether we should see one or two. It'd just be nice to put that to bed finally. I know I'm a pedant, but resting with you, Alan.
Guys, I'm gonna drop a bit, so I'm just gonna sort of bid everyone good evening. If I can, I'll come back if you're still running.
Have a good bank holiday, Dress.
I will. I'm going to go and do all my evening duties of making sure my children actually get some sleep.
Hey, Dress, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
I remember those days.
No worries, guys. And always a pleasure, John.
So glad my youngest is getting married in November.
I technically probably don't have that long. Certainly, I'm more than halfway through that period.
And what's even better it looks like they've found somewhere to move into.
Hey.
Because I have friends who are moving from Norwich down to Cornwall to Tintagel, and it looks like they be able to take over the lease on their house. So that's kind of
handy.
That's nice. Norwich is a nice place to live too.
Yeah, and it's out in the suburbs, but it's like a 20-minute bus ride to the city centre. It's a pain in the ass, but I can get there on the bus in about 2.5 hours, which is mostly because I have to do a 40-minute bus ride in the wrong direction to start with before I can then get the bus to Norwich.
So the problem with Norwich, so I'll tell you a little bit about Norfolk. Interesting facts about Norfolk very, very quickly. And the reason I know this is I ran a business for 10, 12 years to do with low bridges in the UK, and the police and the military and all sorts of people bought it for me because it's very hard to know where the low bridges are. Norfolk's fascinating, right? It's only got... So low bridges tend to cluster around where we have in the UK historic railways, okay? Because it's logical, right? You build a railway there, you got a low bridge, so you got a direct road around it. Okay, that's how low bridges work generally, right? We're not building too many new low bridges, okay? So all the truck drivers are buying all this data up for me, and I had to survey Norwich now, or Norfolk actually. Norfolk has only got about 22 low bridges in it, which doesn't sound very many. The trouble is, since there's no motorways, I think I've said this before, haven't I, Alan? Any motorways, and there's a few A roads, they've all got bloody low bridges on them. So the 22 in Norfolk are absolutely critical to anyone who's driving a big articulated vehicle around Norfolk and doesn't know it. So yeah, it's very important for me to survey it properly.
It's a nightmare, isn't it?
It's the problem of getting to places like Burnham Market or Holt.
And it takes forever to get there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, my mum still lives in Kings Lynn, so I've got there quite regularly.
Yeah. I mean, it's lovely. Kings Lynn is lovely, right? The Broads are just fantastic, right? But it just takes forever. The roads just go on, and it's flat, and they go on.
Damn it, Lenny! Stop sending me vegan shit.
I'm gonna go.
Have a good night.
The distance from the Space Needle left to the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse is 62.5% of the distance right to the other lighthouse.
So we've got a better chance of seeing it then, Alan. Yeah, good call. And it's higher.
That's the yellow line that's currently there. So that yellow line.
Well, you're not sharing. If you think you're sharing at the moment, unless I've pressed the wrong thing, which I might have done. But
yeah, I just went to pin. He's pinned for everyone else.
All right, just me then.
Oh no! For the chat, I meant because I had.
That's brilliant.
I have to have Google Earth Pro open over the hangout window. So
should we take a look at the video because we should maybe be able to see that one in Montreal?
No, I'm looking at it right now.
No, but I'm now going to give you the.
Yeah.
Right. So
no, go ahead, Don.
That one. Measure. I think
that's half the distance again. Like that definitely should be on the magnified view. We should see it. We should definitely see it.
That's well left. Yeah, I mean left to right. That's 62.5% of the distance.
That's what I mean. Exactly. It's all right. Not quite half, but yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to find the widest angle to the left of the tower now.
Okay, so I've come inside that a little bit on that line. So actually,
I mean the angle. Yeah.
Outside of there, but.
Okay. I'm ready.
Let me.
All right, let's have a look, Sean. Then let's see if we can see it.
Back there, and
I just want to check, Montreal. You get what I'm trying to do here, do you? Is Montreal on the line still?
Should be here.
Let me get a distance for you as well.
Is Montreal there? Sorry, I didn't hear. I'm probably just.
I'm looking right now.
Is he dropped?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, he's here.
Okay, you understand what I'm trying to do with these distances? You understand what I'm trying to see?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm trying to do is see if we basically I'm trying to see where should we be looking for the lighthouse, right? And on this one, I'm positing how much is it, Alan, in relation to that white building? Do we go as far as the white building across or less far?
Hang on, can I just read this off? Because if somebody could check this in the drop calculator, the distance from the beach to the lighthouse is 44.6 kilometers. And we know that it is 80 meters high.
So should we see it? Should we see 80 meters at 44 kilometers? Well, 2 inches per mile.
Shouldn't the whole thing be under the skyline?
That's what we're
Most of the skyline shouldn't it be not visible?
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of just going through the steps to verify everything.
Because it's a real video that someone's taken, isn't it? Who wasn't, as such, trying to prove anything, were they? You know, the person who took the video, I guess, wasn't.
I don't know if she was a flat earther, but it's.
Certainly evidence.
He knows her.
It seems to me to be independent-ish evidence. This doesn't look like a prepped video that someone has picked.
No. Actually,
like something that you or I could go and do.
Yeah, the flat earther who knows the girl, I would consider him. He's honest. He may be a little biased, but he's honest. So I don't think anything was set up on his end on this video.
Target distance is what, 44K, wasn't it?
Yeah, 44.6 kilometers. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
What would it be in meters?
I'm doing that. I'm doing 2 meters high. What observer height are you using?
You know what?
It's 6 feet.
So it should be hidden according to what I'm looking at. Yeah, I'm using 6 feet, yeah. So I'm getting a hidden distance of 120 meters roughly.
0.3.
So that should not be visible.
Is that
skyline or
the center, the white building there?
We shouldn't see that much of it, but we also know that there's refraction and distortion in there. I mean, you can see it. Or if you look at that what looks like a black line, if you come up on that white building, you'll even see halfway between the top how it kind of just is off. That's distortion.
Okay, another thing I can tell you is that from the line of the thingy tower, the Sky Needle, the left hand end of the the long white building is 1/3 of the distance to where the lighthouse should approximately 1/3.
Say that again. So
where the lighthouse should be.
I'm in around the range of where that lighthouse should be. I think.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about the same distance as that white building. Out.
2/3.
Well, the left hand from the Sky Needle to the far end of the white building is 1/3 of the distance to where the lighthouse should be.
What?
Right there.
I don't know which white building you mean.
The one in
the BMI building.
No,
the
Rogers Center, the one to the left of the needle.
Because we're going.
Okay, so you're about where it should be then, Sean.
Yeah, I 100% guess or
so according to the
guesstimate.
curve calculator, we probably shouldn't see it.
Now we should actually figure out the buildings in that background of where we should see
How much
it.
of them we should see?
Exactly.
How much of that white building, the Rogers building, should we see? Was it Rogers building?
I think the Roger. Yeah, that's the Roger.
This is what the flat earthers always talk about. Stuff like this, which can't be explained.
Well, it can be explained with refraction.
Rogers building, which is essentially a dome, looks so square because the dome opens. The construction around the edges of the dome that hold the dome up when it's opened are rectangular. So we see that rectangular part of the building because that is actually square onto what we see. So now I know. Now I realise why that building looks to be that shape, and it's correct.
Its height. I'm sorry. Its height is 282 feet.
Okay, so what's that in meters? 282 feet.
There's not a lot of slope on that roof. It's a gentle curve. The center of it's I don't know, 30 feet higher than the outside edges.
You're looking at.
But I think one thing we all continue to do is look at these pictures and try to say what we should see and what we shouldn't see. And the fact of the matter is, you should see what you see here. This is exactly what you should see.
80 85.9 meters, Tony. Sorry, guys.
Rogers
But you just made the flat earthers point there.
No.
The flat earthers say, "Look, I see it. It's there," and the round earthers say, "Oh no, we got to calculate it."
But here's the thing: there is missing. That's I mean, right off the bat, there's missing.
Not seeing everything.
The center of the Rogers building is 47.6 kilometers from the beach.
Yeah.
So are we seeing everything? We're not.
We're missing a lot.
Then the debate goes. What's causing that? Ranty would say, if you were here, that this is very much compressed at the bottom for reasons: air, water, refraction, light, something.
That's right.
We, of course, would say that it's occluded by the curve, which is why I tend to avoid these observations, because I think it's very. I don't know where you go then from there. Do you see what I mean?
These are the worst observations you can make, really.
I agree. That's why I tend to avoid them, because to me they're anomalous. Because you're always debating this missing bit. Yeah,
but here's the thing: when I realize that there's a whole island missing, that's different.
But that's accounted for, Shawn.
There's no. Where is it? No. It's accounted for by curvature, though.
You say it's curvature.
All the 86
Well, what else could it be?
Somebody had, yeah.
It's just too far away. It's getting smaller.
Then why do we see the city? And not that we see, or my bad.
Exactly.
We see. Yeah, I misspoke, and you know it. Why do we see the city, but not what's in between us?
So my interesting question would be this. I'll give a more intelligent question to Montreal. Why do we see the bottom of the Space Needle hidden? Why, for example, don't we see the ball in the middle of the Space Needle compressed and hidden? Why should it just be the bottom of the Space Needle? Why doesn't that middle bit get compressed and hidden as well?
Look, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but the answer here is perspective.
Okay, it's
refraction. Why doesn't it apply to the middle? Yeah, why doesn't it apply to the middle?
Or better yet, hang on. Better yet, Montreal, you can say perspective, but your perspective would be to explain why it's that way. When you say perspective, perspective means looking, basically. You're just, my perspective is looking. So perspective doesn't explain anything.
I hear you, but let me ask you this, Shawn. If we were to go 50 miles back, what would you think would happen to this scene here?
We'd start losing more and more of it.
You won't see the city.
Exactly.
Well, here's the thing.
Exactly. Now, you guys say it's curvature, and they say it's perspective.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
You got to come to.
I see exactly what you're saying. You're saying if this is what we're seeing with the naked, or zoomed out, better yet, because it's not the naked eye. Zoomed out, this is what it looks like. This is what you would see from where they are. But when you zoom in, it's not bringing. It just look so. See how small everything is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. It's all still there. Everything we can see when this lady zooms in is we're looking at right now. Right. The needle's there. Everything's still there.
Resolve it.
Exactly. But as we move into it, that's when we start seeing everything that we're seeing back just magnified.
All that terrible wibbly wobbliness.
Exactly. Look at that. To me, this is an anomalous. I keep saying it's anomalous, but these are anomalous to me, right? These are things that I would reject in most science because they're just. I know they're wrong. Look, I can see it all like waving and burning and.
But you wouldn't say it's wrong. You would say it's due to blah 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 amount of refraction.
And that's why I avoid these observations, because to me it's really hard to get any further. Sorry.
Perspective gives no preference to the bottom of an object. Perspective is equally applied to the totality of the object.
I hear you, Schrodinger, but that's another misconception.
Okay, why?
Because when we see somebody walking down a far road, we see them disappearing legs first. It's from the deck.
What are you watching? Because look, when you do that, it's not disappearing. It's shrinking because we're zooming back out. What you see, nothing's changing. We're not gaining anything. We're not losing anything. Because the observational point is
gaining or losing.
Well, but your explanation for what's missing
is losing something. You're losing the feet first.
Yeah. Well, the person. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, why are we losing the person's feet, not their head or their arms or their side?
And if it was perspective,
exactly. That's my point.
Well,
because that's how our eyes work.
Okay, and if that was the case, then when a plane flies into the distance or a rocket goes up, as it goes away, we should see a portion of the bottom being lost up. Because remember, curvature land is not doing that in your opinion. So that means a plane, exactly, and not in the distance. I'm talking as it gains altitude away from you. Anything going away from you should do that if that's the case.
And objects straight up should do the same as well. When I look upwards, literally straight upward, 90 degrees upwards, perpendicular.
So you mean you dispute the fact that when we see somebody walking away in the distance that he disappears legs first?
Because of curvature.
It doesn't happen.
If they're disappearing behind a curve, they disappear leg first. If they're disappearing behind a corner, they're disappearing side first.
Why you always gotta do that, Barney? Damn it. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, and I wanted to say, great fucking stream yesterday, Barney. That you and that guys meshed well, and it was a good conversation. I liked it.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable.
Yeah. The whole religion part boggles my mind, how people can be so militant from both sides. That was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That was weird. I was like, man.
Oddly enough, by the time Ali and I finished speaking last night, we literally switched over to watch the end of the that stream, and it had literally just finished.
It was a really good conversation. Like they meshed well with each other. You know, they were never battling. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of in and out, but I was mainly in the chat once we started finishing off. And I'm just saying, Barney, you know, why can't you have party girls when like I'm streaming, yo?
That does not happen ever. It's just that one of those girls was celebrating a birthday, and they took the office rec room as the place to hold the party. So all the while yesterday there was a party, and at 2 a.m. in the morning they came in drunk off their ass and came to hug me.
I was like, wow, what the hell's going on right now? Everything just stopped.
Barney's got chicks on camera. So the same question, Montreal, I've got for when Arwin and Sleeping Warrior talk about relative density disequilibrium, or whatever they call it.
Sure.
Again, you know, why,
specific gravity.
Why is it down, right? Why is it down? Yeah, you know, why is it always tending down? Why isn't it tending to the side? Why isn't it tending upwards? Why doesn't it tend in other directions, that cherry tomato? Why does it always go down? It's exactly the same thing.
Into the world,
this
guys.
Is the number one thing that boggles my mind is the direction. I have to agree with you on that.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because density,
where you lifted from, the starting point.
Yeah, potential.
But you can
or
prove
whatever.
that. But you can obviously prove that, you know, many different ways. Yeah, if you actually think about it, you know, they say it's from the starting point because it's finding that place that it was in equilibrium. But I mean, that's just a nonsense. You can introduce things that tend downwards.
Yeah.
Why does rain fall out of the sky? Why does it disequilibrianize downwards? Why doesn't it go sideways? Yeah, upwards or some other direction. Yeah, you've not moved the rain from anywhere. Anyway,
be right back, guys. Keep going.
Why do things go down?
I must admit that's your best argument. That's your best argument. The direction. Very hard to explain that away.
Well, it's not hard to explain, but it takes gravity to do it.
No, explain away is what I'm saying.
Explain away.
You can explain. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so I would obviously argue it's not explained away. I would argue that when we have our model, and I know Nathan loves to say things like we don't live on a model, but I would posit that we use those models all the time. So whether we live on them or not, they are useful to us, these models. You know, and millions of people around the world are using these models to make decisions, basically, that do affect our lives.
Well, make it very clear. Hang on. A model is not why we believe or understand where we live. The model is our observations and recorded data put onto something that we could visually put it and see and calculate with. Everything on a model we've observed.
So for me, Nathan rejects models, right? Nathan is hyper skeptical. I've said this before. and he doesn't give positive evidence, which is my biggest criticism of him. He is picking things apart always. Okay, so let's ignore the fact, hang on, that he's picking things apart. Let's look at the model. He says a model is useless. Of course, he says a model, yeah, but he never gives a positive proof for anything. He can't, under his definition with QE of scientific method, right? You couldn't get anything through. Sorry, go on.
Tony, I doubt Nathan could balance his checkbook. The guy can't manage arithmetic. That's his problem with a mathematical model. He understands nothing about math.
I agree. And he therefore makes an argument that models are not what we live on, but he ignores the point that models are pretty fundamental. Why do we build models? We don't build them for fun. We don't build them just because we like math, right? We build models because, so for example, my son, 16, he's doing his O-levels, just passed them actually. He is using models there and predictions, which he can then take into the real world, and he can make sensible predictions about stuff, whether a wall should fall down or whether he can throw a ball a certain distance. You know what I mean? He has some tools now that he can start to apply to the world. Not very sophisticated, but he can, right? He can apply that. He can work out which car gets there faster and which train. And, you know, he can do some of these things with these models. And that's why we build models. They're very, very, very useful, right? We use them in the real world. I think Nathan throwing them away, yeah, is very sad. Sorry,
well, they're very useful provided you can understand the mathematics involved, and that is the problem, and that's the reason Nathan runs from it. That's the reason Quantum Eraser and Sleeping Warrior run from them. They know they can't do the math. They do not understand the math. It's that simple, and they have no choice. They cannot afford to get into an argument or a discussion of the mathematics involved because they know they're going to just get their ass handed to them. That's the problem.
The problem is maths is not a trivial subject. You know, it is tricky to understand. I'm not great at maths. I have to really struggle to understand some of these equations, and certainly some of them are well beyond me, right? I'm not that good with them. And I do struggle when I have to do some of these calculations. But still, some of them we absolutely can understand. Some of the relationships are not that hard. And so I'm very surprised that Warrior and QE and Nathan haven't educated themselves at least a little bit with some of these base models. So for example, as I was going through some of the basic physics ones with my son in revision, you know, and some of them actually you can understand, and, you know, you can demystify the terms, right? Especially some of the gas ones are actually very understandable. And so it's kind of sad, I think, that people just throw models out because Nathan says, well, models are no good. You don't live on a model, therefore we don't want models. It's a shame because if you do understand, maybe not the beauty, but the relationships in a model, they are useful. And we can do real things with them. Like I gave Arwin a problem the other day because he said he had his own version of gravity disequilibrium. So I'm waiting for him to come back with his solution to a problem I gave him the other day, which will be interesting to see what he comes back with.
Since we're talking... Go ahead, Blue.
Yeah, I really want them to define for me what disequilibrium means. Because as far as I know, it has no meaning whatsoever in science or in engineering. It is a term that's used. It's a term that's used almost exclusively either in economics or in medicine.
No, disequilibrium definitely has a meaning in physics. Another term for it is the normal force, right? Normal force literally is the disequilibrium of forces. And I've
never heard it defined that way. I suppose you could stretch it to include those words if you wanted to, but it's not a phrase that we typically find used. You never find it used in engineering anywhere.
Not in engineering, in physics. You find the term equilibrium and the term disequilibrium are common terms in physics, in chemistry, in biology. That's
not in any. Well, Barney, with all respect, not in any chemistry, physics, or engineering course I ever took.
What's it telling us, disequilibrium? Okay. I understand equilibrium, but what's disequilibrium, Barney? Give us an example where we'd use it, just so I can kind of understand.
Disequilibrium is, so equilibrium is the state in which all forces in any meaning of the word, all effects are equalized in balance such that they cancel each other out.
That's my understanding of equilibrium, correct.
That's equilibrium. Disequilibrium is being outside of that state. meaning that there is some normal forcing on the system.
But isn't that very common? So when I did physics,
in evolutionary theory, it is used like equilibrium is once an organism or a population reaches a state of equilibrium with their environment and with the other populations in the region, they stop changing. They enter a phase of stasis or a very gradual change.
Right. It's the absence of environmental pressures that cause speciation, correct?
Yeah. This equilibrium is the evolutionary pressure. But even beyond that, you know what those terms mean. You know what the content and meaning behind those words is, even if you haven't used them in a scientific sense.
So the reason I'm confused, Barney, is equilibrium, I'm very well aware of, and as I say, I've definitely come across that before in physics. But disequilibrium is an awful lot of states. I'm just wondering how useful it is, because it's quite a common state for things to be in disequilibrium, because I'm trying to work out a force relative to others. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? I don't know what it describes. I don't know what disequilibrium is describing, other than that something is out of equilibrium. Yeah.
Yes, but that's all that it is describing. It is saying.
Oh, okay. I don't know how common it is. Okay, all right.
In respect to gravity, the thing that we were talking about mentioning yesterday, things don't fall when there is an equalizing force, when there is an equilibrium of forces upon them, when there is a force counteracting gravity.
I gotta disagree with that.
Force, as soon as you remove that force, that thing will start moving down, because it will be in a disequilibrium until it gets a pushback from the ground that suppresses its movement, and then it will again reach an equilibrium of forces.
Not to be argumentative, but if something is falling but it's at its terminal velocity, isn't it at an equilibrium?
It is, yes, fair enough.
I think that's a special case.
Yes.
Because other than that, I agree with everything you just said. Sorry to be pedantic.
Yes, you are correct. You are being pedantic, but you are correct. When I say they don't fall, I mean they don't accelerate. They don't fall faster. A thing moving downwards at a fixed rate is not falling.
Yeah, because there's no change in velocity.
Yes, there is no net force. There is no normal force.
But I think that Arwin has come up with this term. What does he call it? Mass something disequilibrium. I think it's a term that he tried to coin to really talk about little g. That's what he's really referring to, I think. Myself, but we'll see.
Well, I think you guys helped me understand my own point. You see, there can be an awful lot of different ways to interpret a phrase like disequilibrium. I understand thermal equilibrium. We use that in thermodynamics, and actually probably use disequilibrium in that sense too in thermo. But that's the only place in physics or in engineering that I ever ran across it.
I've come across it in business a lot. We have it in economics a
Yeah,
lot.
and
disequilibrium.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
That's where
a
you
financial
find it.
term.
It's a financial term primarily. It can be it can be a medical term too.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, we talk about gearing and disequilibrium. In financial services, we talk about it quite a bit. Yeah.
I think because generally in engineering, we are much more concerned with the specifics of what the force being applied to remove the equilibrium is. We don't really care that there is a force. We want to know what the actual force is in engineering, because generally that's what we are going to be concerned with dealing with.
Yeah, we're more inclined to talk about things like statics or dynamics. Those should be explanatory, but in statics, the sum of the forces equals 0, the sum of the moments equals 0. That's what I just taught you statics. Okay.
Yeah.
In dynamics, things are different. The forces are not necessarily equal, nor are the moments. So something's moving.
Yeah. Or something is accelerating even.
Or accelerating, yeah.
General, I gotta go. Nice talking to you all. Have a great day.
See you, Montreal.
Yeah, see it.
Tony, I actually thought of you today. I ran into a video, like Minute Physics today published a video which is a much better explanation. Like a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the analemma and why does it go up and down, why does it go left and right and all of that. And I think I explained the up and down okay, but the left and right was left muddy a bit. And Minute Physics just published today a video which very well explains that part of why do days, like the solar days, act differently depending on the orbit. So I just remembered that I wanted to share that with you. Anyway, I put it in the side chat. Is he here even? Am I talking to myself?
I don't know. Who are you talking to, Barney?
Toady.
He's in the chat. I don't know. He's on mute right now.
He's on mute, but I think he's still in the call, but he's on mute.
Like, as far as the whole equilibrium, disequilibrium, yeah, fair enough. They use weird terms, and they use the term itself is not weird. The way they use it is weird. In the same sense that the way they use relative density is weird. The proper term is density gradient. Relative density is something slightly different, but again, it falls into the same category of you know what they mean.
Yeah, they're talking about. I know when they say I know what specific gravity is, and I understand. I can understand what they're talking about. I understand what they're talking about when they say disequilibrium. I'm just not willing any longer to let them define my science for me. They can use their terms if they wish, but I'm using my damn terms.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. You should.
So I don't have the equivalent for disequilibrium, I guess.
Yes, you do. The normal force.
The normal force, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. When the normal force is 0, things are in equilibrium. When the normal force is not 0, they're in disequilibrium. That's all that word means.
Okay.
That the thing is, when they invoke relative density or the density gradient, the pressure gradient as a vector, the density gradient has a vector. The pressure gradient has a vector. Those things can be proper causes for motion. That's none of those things. Like all of Riley's experiments are actually valid. He is showing that if he changes the gradient, that things move in some direction. That's fine. The only problem is if you're saying that that's the main underlying cause, that means that if you remove that gradient completely, if you make a uniform medium or remove the medium, then there should be no force. And then you put a thing in a vacuum chamber and it falls, and your whole theory has gone to shit, because now you have a vector which is not gradient, which is not relative density. And that's the part that like I've been participating in these conversations for weeks, months even, and like they just don't see it or are blind to it either intentionally or unintentionally.
Well, Riley doesn't see the necessity to include all the known forces acting on a body in his analysis. According to Riley, he can just indiscriminately leave out what he would like, anything he would like, and as long as he doesn't include it, it's like it doesn't exist. That's the problem. It's not that his experiment is invalid. It's very valid. But it's demonstrating Archimedes' principle.
Yeah. And there's parts of that like when we talk about modeling, we are also talking about generalization and abstraction. they will focus on an individual case and try to say that an individual case can have two interpretations. Like my favorite example is the sticks and shadows measurement, where yes, they can be a sphere, but they can also be two parallel sticks with the sun being much closer and shorter. But if you have and then you generalize, what happens if I add a third stick? Every two sticks will point to a small close sun, but every two sticks will point to a different small sun. On a sphere, all those sticks, all the relations between any two sticks will always point at the same sun at the same location, which happens to be where we see it. Which one of those answers is correct? When you have a model, when you generalize, when you abstract, you get an answer which works in all situations and all cases consistently. That is the true answer.
That's right. Riley relies, well, they all do. They all rely on incredible levels of special pleadings to get them past any one of their theories. And that's the only way they can get there.
I tried replying to Riley only once, and he did a video kind of reading my email in which I explained the concept to him. Like, just watching the video, you can see the problem in his approach to things, because he would read half of the sentence, then skip a paragraph of text, then read half of the sentence, and then say, well, this is obviously wrong. You haven't explained X. And yes, I have. You have just skipped it. You didn't read it. You didn't consider it. You didn't think about it. You have just concluded. You like, why did you even open up the email? You could have just a priori concluded that the email is wrong and offered that as but all of the explanations that you asked for are included in text in the mail.
Well, Riley is just, you can't talk to him. I can't.
Oh, I can't either.
And I just got done with him.
Especially when he jumps through those things, doesn't read them, doesn't consider them, but insists on calling you an utter moron. You utter moron, you dolt, you don't understand. Okay.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hey guys, I just want to give the 10-20 minute warning, just so you guys know.
Hey, can we do that 30 seconds of free for all?
No, we don't do that anymore, and it has to happen at the beginning.
Okay.
That's the general mode of reasoning that you do, where you just kind of close one eye and say, well, I think it is this, therefore it's that. And yes, of course, you're going to be wrong about half of the things. Like, wherever you guessed wrong, you're just going to be wrong. So the whole method of science is how to figure out where you are wrong, and that requires rigor. That requires taking a look at all the examples, finding the way which lies at their intersection, which works in every case. Sorry, ranting.
Well, it's like trying to teach a child how to do things. You know, you can explain it over and over and over again, and they may pick up on one small piece of it, but they won't pick up the entire thing.
Yeah, that's the way Riley and Arwen both act like petulant children.
Stream yesterday, I was on Jose's panel, and of the 3 years I've been around, yesterday was the first time I've actually had a conversation with, or had words with Arwen. It was not fun. It was annoying and pointless. I think almost pointless as any flavor I've ever talked to was worse than that. Like, he didn't say anything.
Arwen's just a silly little boy.
Yeah. I can give Arwen the benefit of the doubt that maybe he believes what he's saying, but not Riley. At this point, it's been going on so long, and he's been corrected so many times to his face that he has to be a Poe.
Riley thinks he's trying a court case. Well, since he's not a real lawyer, he wants to try to practice law here on the internet.
Yeah, that's all he's doing. He's just playing his semantic game. Like working on his words.
Yeah, he's got a few tricks, which is have your definitions, have your citations, bring up your citations, absolutely hammer someone on the word, whether it's and, or whether it's the word gravity, or whether you're finding pseudoscience, exactly. And it's tricks learned from Nathan that he just articulates. He thinks he's a good lawyer. He's really not a very good barrister. He's really not a very good lawyer. He's not that good with words, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, he got really upset with me one day when I said, Riley, you're going to have to forgive me if I don't take my science advice from a failed lawyer.
Well, here's the thing. So
appreciate that.
I've been getting into it with him in the DMs. Yesterday, he actually blocked me because he got sick of me asking him questions. Yeah, he's a very pathetic person. It's bad, really bad. Like he was
doing something a week or so ago, and he actually looked up the word physics. So I typed in the chat. If you have to look the word up, do you really feel fucking qualified to talk about it?
I think the difficulty he has is this: he's misunderstood the world really, and by using definitions, he believes he's going to find a useful tool there.
I think he's 100%. He's 100% a snake oil salesman. He knows damn well it's not flat. He does way too much to be that damn stupid.
I agree. He does do too much,
and that's just the reality of it.
I've been stockpiling a lot of stuff for the day that I have a debate with him. I've not really ever had a debate with him, but it's coming. We've kind of agreed to it. But I've got a lot of citations ready because I think you need it with Riley because he's very keen to pull up his citations very quickly, right?
It's
and
about
then he goes to his definitions, and then you always argue in his territory because he's already prepared 27 things that say that gravity.
You have to keep it in your court because he ran over me on Jose's panel once, and ever since then I realized exactly how to handle it. I've talked to him 2 times on a panel. And both times, it was a completely different story. As long as you control the situation, he is useless.
Right. If you know what he's going to cite, the only thing that you need to know is what the very next paragraph after what he's going to read says.
Just know when he reads, he's reading only part, like Barney was saying.
There was a couple of interesting things I saw. When he had his chat with that guy who, I can't remember what his name is, but he's an Australian who was actually on Renty's show. I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's very interesting. That guy was very good, by the way. I can't remember what he's called. Arrested Development or something like that. He was an Australian.
Rested Soul.
He was on Ranty's review of the
Rested
week.
Soul.
Right. Okay. He was very good. Right. Yeah. If it's the same guy. Yeah.
I know you're talking about.
Him and Sleeping Warrior. He was a very reasonable guy. He said, "I'll go and look that up," or "I disagree with you, Riley," or "You whatever piece of work, Riley." You know, he really didn't get into the swearing stuff, but very good. And then I think what comes from that is that you probably need to move away from Riley's definition of gravity. And the gravity is not a force. Musa says this, so-and-so says that. We know where that argument goes. It's been played out 1,000 times. The point is, does it matter whether it's Einsteinian or Newton? Yeah, does it matter? We're measuring a force. We've got evidence of the force. Because he very quickly goes down this route of what your science says. So why are you telling me what my science says? What are you saying, Anthony? Do you see what I mean? Because we always go in, you know what I mean? He immediately obviously goes for the Musa play and he says, well, there's Einsteinian and that's superseded. Do you see what I mean? He's always controlling the argument there,
yes.
And he's telling us what we think. Yeah. And I think it can very quickly be disruptive if we say, no, that's absolutely not what we're saying.
Yeah, because you start
with this force that I'm measuring.
Yeah, you start defending yourself rather than
you
presenting your evidence.
Exactly. And it's really good to quickly get onto his evidence, which is a much more interesting thing because he really, I don't think, has very much evidence. So I'm very much looking forward to testing him on his own observations and his own evidence and what he believes. Yeah, not what he's telling me I believe. Because again, it's that hypercriticism thing that Nathan does. It's very easy to pick things apart. It's very easy to be hypercritical. It's much, much harder to test their evidence because they won't present it.
So Tody, a little while ago you were muted, and I was talking to you and talking to you and talking to you.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I went away to get a cup of tea. I'm really sorry. Sorry, Barney. Apologies.
It doesn't matter.
Sorry, I wasn't ignoring you. I was literally not here.
Yeah, it's fine. I've posted a link for you in the side chat about the length of day in orbits. That part of Analema that I didn't explain well.
I got Analema after you'd explained it. You put it in this chat now, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go and look at it. Yeah, so thanks for that. Because
It's just about that bit of days lasting different amounts of time depending on the part of the orbit. I just ran into it like minutes.
And you thought, I know there's this guy who hasn't got a clue about Analemas. He'd really benefit.
The video came out today on a channel that I follow, which is called Minute Physics, and they explained the concept that I was struggling with, and like, Toady, and
he's the perfect guy because I'm not afraid to admit, right? I'm not an expert on a lot of these areas, by far from it. Yeah, I'm interested, but not an expert. And some of this stuff, I think not everyone. I think a number of people wouldn't like to admit that they struggle with it a bit, but I think actually probably more people than we think do struggle with it because everyone nods their heads wisely and goes, "Oh yeah, it's such and such." And Analemas, I know what the Analema is, of course, of that, but how it really works and why it really changes because of the various angles and the day length and that, it's yeah. So I'll benefit from that. Thanks, Bonnie.
I struggle with all of it. Like the only reason why I know any of it is because I struggle with it, and that bothers me. So I go up and dig out the answer.
Yeah, that's one of the things I said to Dean, because sadly Dean has left the arena now because diminishing returns. But the thing I said to Dean was the benefit for me actually is these kind of conversations, maybe where I'm not arguing with Ali B or whoever, because that I don't get a lot of kick from. But I do get a kick from learning things that I didn't know, as you say, the things that bothered me, like Analema, and I'm now much, much more informed about our world and our universe than I certainly was a year ago. So yeah, thanks for that. I just copied the link.
Yeah, from my perspective, it makes me a better dad because I'm able to explain things to my son that I 2 years ago I wouldn't have been able to because they weren't even on my radar. Children ask some interesting questions that are actually really good, like why is the sky blue? And if you polled every adult in the world, I think you might find 20% of them know why the sky is blue.
Maybe not even that, because I think I thought I understood quite a lot of these things, and I did in an incredibly, probably incorrect and very basic way. Just if you'd asked me a year ago, you'd met me, you bumped into me, and you'd asked me about some of these things, seasons and eclipses and so forth. Like, oh yeah, sky blue stuff. I think the people who think they understand it, maybe when they start to get tested, suddenly realize they're maybe not as well informed because it's quite complicated, quite a lot of this, and they're very good questions.
You want to see a learning curve? Go look at my early videos compared to now.
A huge part of my learning process, like my motivation for learning these things. How do I say this? At some point, like I was really into sci-fi, and I was really into watching the science documentaries, right? And then when I thought I started understanding it from the documentaries, when things kind of started making sense, it very soon became obvious that none of it works together, that these explanations are not good enough. And that's why I wanted to learn this stuff properly. And then I found the Stanford lectures and the theoretical minimum and stuff like that, and actually got into learning the real stuff. The thing is that people who make documentaries, who kind of popularize science, their goal is not to teach you the science. Their goal is to teach you about science, to teach you, to get you to remember the nugget or the notion of the conclusion. You don't, at that point, you don't understand it. You know that it exists. And the people who make these things are not scientists in many cases. And even if they are, they're not trying to confer science to you. They're conferring ideas. But the graphic designers are not scientists. The editor is not a scientist. The script writers are not scientists. And they fall back on these analogies which kind of confer the idea without explaining it. They give you a general sense of what it might be, but don't tell you what it is.
Have you watched the lectures by Walter Lewin?
Which one?
Walter Lewin. He's retired now. He was an MIT professor.
I'm busy watching Feynman right now. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I've seen your Feynman stuff.
I love Feynman.
Great.
Awesome.
Walter Lewin just retired a few years ago.
I did.
He was an MIT professor, and a lot of his lectures are online, and it's all free.
So some of Feynman's very accessible as well. Feynman can be accessible, can't he? Yeah, on occasion.
A lot of Feynman is available.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of why I really, really appreciate Feynman, because he straddled that line very carefully between explaining actual science and just popularizing science. He, as far as I've looked, I don't think he ever popularized science. He never underestimated his
he was like what revolutionized for science to go, hey, we need a Neil deGrasse Tyson and a Bill Nye out there.
Right. And Walter Lewin's the same way. I mean, even at his advanced age, you can tell when he's speaking that he has a childlike fascination with nature and with physics. He's really great. His last lecture, he exited the stage by sitting on a rolling chair and using a fire extinguisher to propel him off stage.
Oh, I have seen that one. Yeah, he's fantastic. I've seen that one. He's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That's
dangerous.
I've seen that because I remember that. Fantastic.
What happens if there's a fire right after that he got off stage?
I know. Well, I think it was a spare one, wasn't it? But it was really good.
It's never a spare fire extinguisher.
It showed the mass going out. It showed how a rocket theoretically could work, or at least expel. The change in the mass, the density. I mean, it was just fantastic. Many ideas.
That's just that carbon gas and oxide gas pushing off the atmosphere.
Oxide gas. I got it.
So the mass has nothing to do with it. It's only the gas. It's only the gas.
It's not pushing off the atmosphere.
All right, guys.
Rocketry, right? Come on, guys.
I do have to.
He had a vacuum, obviously.
I guess I gotta take off. I got a bunch of stuff I gotta do. Get my son in the whole nine. If you guys want to stay in here, I don't care. I'll leave the hangout going. But I just wanted to say I appreciate this one. This was actually one of my favorite hangout streams because there's no excuse. There was zero excuse. There's not one flat earther that should be using the Toronto skyline anymore. Toady broke it down like it needed to be. Now, the flat earthers that were on the panel left and or said nothing to refute it.
Well, they didn't like the approach, did they?
Well, that's the thing, though. That's what you did. Isn't a bias. It's not a globe. It's not a have to use globe map, like globe math and all. Like you literally broke it down as if each and every one of us were standing there. What do we see? Why are we not seeing it? What's over there? Like we literally did. I think it was about an hour and 15 minutes just breaking it down. There's no excuse for it anymore. Those are the type of things I'm talking about. Because now the next person so I guarantee you, Dan, he'll argue against it. Chris. But that's when you know when they're disingenuous and it's not even worth having that conversation anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. They did leave, didn't they, without objecting? So it was kind of interesting. Yeah,
they stuck around for a minute, but that's exactly.
Yeah, they saw where it was going, didn't they? And I think there wasn't a lot of space to occupy.
Well, you saw Chris. Chris came in hot. Show me. I haven't seen this. Didn't say a damn word after it. And Chris is bad. I didn't realize how bad Chris was until today. I'm gonna tell you right now, I got an issue with Chris. I mean, Chris was okay, but I got a serious issue with what he did on Jose's, calling out fucking B-ball. I'm gonna tell you right now, I talked to B-ball. That money was not to get the surgery. That money was to help his fucking wife and his son out that were 4,000 fucking miles away. So Chris, if you're listening, go fuck yourself doing that shit, man. That was bullshit. I don't fuck flat Earth globe. That's just downright human asshole.
I told him he was being chicken shit.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, my response to him was, Chris, if I ever need money from anybody, you just keep yours in your pocket because I don't want it.
I cannot believe you said that. Like, I was in complete shock about that. Oh my God. Dun 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 dun. Stingray Dean.
Of the devil.
How you doing, sir? I feel
Stingray's
honored.
not allowed here. He's not He's a persona non grata. He doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that's what I
Gone.
thought.
Wiped all his accounts, deleted them all.
And I didn't
was
even.
just there saying
I
it
didn't
was really
even.
sad that
I didn't
Dean's
even.
not around.
I didn't even want him here before. But now that he's been gone, I miss
Did
him.
you ping him? Did you ping him in the
I
background?
did not. I didn't. Oh, I would never do that. I mean, I still feel the same way.
Too late. He missed our brilliant debunk of the Toronto skyline. He would have loved it.
Yeah.
He probably would have built a model.
Not one flat earther refuted it. And we didn't use a model. That's a crazy. Oh, no, we used Google. Yeah, that's a model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting for Pete Shea to start saying that
He won't come on here
was,
anymore.
Patricia Steer.
He can't come on here no more. He's not allowed.
He's not biting, is he? He's not biting.
He's a derailer.
It's bank holiday in England. He's a bit bored. People, he's a bit bored.
Hang on, no. Hang on. I'm sorry, Alan. 1 second. Dean, this stream will not move on until you say hello. You think I'm kidding? We'll
It might
all.
be Dean. It might be somebody now squatting as him.
No, it's me. Hello.
Couldn't keep away.
No, it isn't that. I came on to correct you, Tony.
I love it.
Well, you said I didn't come. I've left because of diminishing returns.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I thought.
And if our 20-minute chat about why I was never going to take part, you could summarize it in because of diminishing returns.
You know, I think that's what I took for. Yeah, you know what? I think that I took from it too in the Skype conversation we had, Dean.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
That's kind of how you came off.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm not explaining myself properly then.
Yes, maybe you should come to my next stream. Oh, go to Jose's first because they want to know. Then come to mine. Make sure you talk to some flat earthers.
I mean, I'm not going to go on Jose's anymore. I'm not going to go on Ranties anymore. Anything that is specifically flat Earth and is meant to get flat earthers to engage with planet earthers, I just do not want to be a part of anymore because, you know, as a counterpoint to what Toady just said, I think I'm enabling them by nature of taking them seriously enough to debate them. I think I'm not helping. Now, people like Conspiracy Cats, people like Simon Dan, you don't see these actively, daily taking part, validating the argument by arguing against it and feeling like they have to impose an opinion. They just do this passive kind of sit back thing, which is fine. But when you get people like Pete Shea, when you get people like Chris, and they come on and you're actively having a to and fro with them, attempting to correct them, even though all they see in their mind is confirmation bias beliefs towards, you know, their end goal. I somehow now feel like I validate that by devoting my time, my professional time, to trying to educate, even though I know I probably never will. Now I think I previously justified it because, you know, people in the audience that are on the fence. But when you start just looking at the numbers of this thing, the numbers would not fill a football stadium, and this is a huge planet full of a lot of fucking people. And to be honest, the people that are on the fence that you could convince with a to and fro and a good argument between a planet earther and a flat earther, if they're on the fence and don't rightly know and are questioning things, even having done their own research, I probably don't want them in my reality contributing to my planet anyway. And I know it's a horrible thing to say, but I solely believe that people like you, Shawn, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people like you and Jose, it was only a matter of time before you became a planet Earther again.
Absolutely.
Nothing was going to stop you from becoming that.
No,
Time scales slightly.
No, because that would depict that would almost depict that I felt like it was a globe still, and I was trying to prove it to myself. I honestly thought it was flat.
Oh no, I know, but the point there is you were looking for truth, yeah?
Yes.
You weren't looking for something to prove that it was flat.
No. I was looking for what the truth. Yeah, I was looking for truth, and whatever that truth presented is where I live.
Yeah. Now, what I'm saying is, you don't need a Barney. You don't need a Big Blue. You don't need a Rump. Certainly, don't need a Rumpus. You would have got there anyway. I would imagine.
No, not without. Honest to God, honestly, I would not be where I am today, whether it be still a flat earther or just not have anywhere near the knowledge that I have now. if it wasn't for guys like Barney, Blue,
oh no, knowledge I get, but I honestly
and a lot more.
believe, or the way that way that I looked at it in kind of a retrospective that I had of the whole thing, I believe that you and Jose don't need anybody to get to the truth.
That's actually a question that I have.
We don't need anyone to sway our truth is a better way of saying it, because we do need that information. The truth may not, like you said, time scale, but the bigger thing to me would have been, I mean, like I said, I think I would know a third of what I know right now if it wasn't for the people and going through being a flat earther, for that matter. I didn't. If I never became a flat earther, I'd be dumb as fuck. I wouldn't know any of this shit.
I absolutely get that, and I'm the same thing. I say the same thing.
Would you say, Shawn, that flat earthers or recovering flat earthers save themselves, or someone saves them? Do you understand my question? Do most recovering flat earthers figure it out on their own, or are they led to?
They figure it out on their own. If stuff starts tying in, they get quieter. They stop being so vocal.
It has to come from them. No one's going to convince someone, is it?
Yeah, I can tell you now.
Yeah.
That's not true. I've been in I have an exact situation with a specific person where I know which argument convinced him.
Oh, no. There was an argument that convinced me, but there's an argument that suddenly sets up and you start realizing how things work. And then
what I mean is, you couldn't sit in a room and save Pete Shea. You couldn't sit in a room and save Chris Berry or Travis or someone. Yeah.
No. There's no.
Here's an analogy. Tell me whether this is wrong. But I saw an analogy in my own head, and it's one that I actually told to Toda. There's this guy, and he's at the side of the street, and he's got a sign saying the world's going to end, and he's screaming at the top of his voice saying, the sky is red and the temperature is below freezing, the world is about to end. And everybody's walking past this person, and they're looking up at the sky. Sky's fucking blue. It's a nice sunny day. It's certainly not cold. And they carry on. But then a computer graphic artist, a photographer, an electrical engineer, and a physicist all stop to debate with this guy.
Yeah.
Now my question here is, a software engineer, stop, and they fucking debate with this guy. Now this guy is good at articulating an argument and constructing an argument. So now they seem to have a valid to and fro. And the problem that I've got is those people walking past that think, fucking hell, there's no way the sky's bloody red and it's minus temperature. Now stop. Because those individuals that are professionals in their field, that exhibit knowledge in their field, are deeming this worthy enough to dedicate their time towards it. And that's what scared me.
I think your analogy works, Dean, but I think they've ducked down a side alley. So I don't think the general crowd are actually seeing them have the debate.
They're sitting in a pub somewhere with cigarettes and alcohol. Half of them are high. And I really don't think that they're being validated by these conversations. In a big part of what you're saying, I actually agree with you.
Yeah, but Barney, wait, let me just go.
Just let me one statement, and then we can have it. So in one part, I agree with you very much. If this is a burden on you, if you are not enjoying this, if you feel insecure about this, if you are not doing this for your own personal enjoyment, even if you don't convince anybody, then you are wasting your time and don't do this.
Yeah. You have weird motives if you're still here for that. Yeah.
I think the way I think also the majority of people who like watching these videos actually aren't flat earthers. The vast majority are oppose it, and they listen to it because it makes all of them feel intellectually superior.
I think you believe the majority of people have even a basic knowledge of what we're talking about. That's the issue, because I can tell you right now, there are more people here listening and giving a fuck about what we're saying than people who troll, don't care, or trying to refute it. I promise you that. I can look at every chat. Trust me, there's 30 right now. There's 32 people watching, and there's 12, 13 people in my chat active. The rest are listening, and I would say most of them are taking it in, whether they're taking it in and trying to spin it around, or they're taking it in to learn it, or whatever. I honestly think that the whole flat Earth fake idea, there's a very few of them, and I'd say 98% of the content creators are snake oil salesmen. That's what I call them.
I think people are attracted by the debate and the characters, and they like the big matches when they go to Ranties and they see sort of Rumpus take on Sleeping Warrior, whatever it is.
Well, that'd be like that'd be a Glober who is never ever going to be a flat earther, is what you're describing right there. Who they want like that you're an idiot, and they like that's why
you utter moron, because they feel that someone's getting a few kind of hits in. And I think there's the same the other side. I think that some of the flat earthers enjoy seeing, science, the man, sort of ripped apart. Yeah. So when Rumpus is taken down a peg, he sounds like a posh science sort of geek anyway. Yeah, right. We want to see him taken down a peg. So I think there's a bit of that.
And it's a shift too.
It's so perfectly setting himself up for that, right? With his lack of self-control.
He has to know.
Smart, informed, knowledgeable. The snob elite who just loses his shit when challenged.
Yeah, I've tried talking to Rumpus about it, because I said to him, I said, you've got such a good message, and if you actually did your message in a more succinct way, rather than trying to sort of explain everything from floor to ceiling, make a specific point and look at the point, don't try and explain the entire set of physics that sits behind it. One, you won't get frustrated. Two, your interlocutor won't get frustrated. And three, there'll be less utter morons. Because that's one reason. Part of it with Rumpus is he wants to get to his point, and he is making a valid point. It's just not suitable for this medium. There you go. That's a nice way of saying it.
For me, I'm here primarily for myself. I'm here to learn, and to learn by way of finding questions that I never thought to ask, and finding simple and eloquent ways to explain them. I don't fly off the handle like Rumpus, which means that I'm boring to most of the audience. But then again, I'm here, like, in my mind, I'm here for Shawn, who seems genuinely interested in understanding things in the same way that I am. And that's so, like, I don't feel alone in my research of science, of philosophy, if I have somebody to talk to who can ask me questions that I can either know the answer to or not know the answer to, but then have a motivation to go research and find out and try to be Feynman about it and find the way to explain it in words which are not like, yeah, sure, I can just copy equations from a book, and that is the answer to his question, but he's not.
This is what Rumpus calls this to me, because I make that point, by the way, because I like that sort of pursuit of knowledge, and that's where I get the kick out of this whole thing, is experiments and the debate, the conversation. Rumpus calls me on that, and he says I'm sort of Oxford Debating Society, and that isn't the world that we live in, and flat earthers are much nastier than that, right? They're not interested in the Oxford Debating Society. And I agree, and I spoke to Dean about this. I am much more interested in that Oxford Debating Society part of it, where we have conversations and we, like we did earlier, right? We look at ideas and we test them out. I'm less, for me, interested in the drama part.
Yeah.
I just think I listen. The thing that immediately got to me is what I was getting out of it in a selfish sense was knowledge. Yeah, lots of knowledge. But that knowledge was only 25% of my interactions. Let's say 50% of them was aggressive conflict or passive aggressive conflict. And then 25% it was utter bullshit. So it comes down to that 75% that is actually not productive towards me. Is it productive towards anybody else?
Yeah.
If it, and I'm not someone that agree with entertainment. I don't watch like soap operas on TV. I don't have a TV license. I don't give a shit about that. So that 75% of conflict and coupled with 25%, that 50% conflict and 25% bullshit, is that benefiting anybody? And the only answer that I came up with in my own head is it's allowing people with a belief that I think should not be held a valid position because they have an opposition. Now, if they have no opposition, all they have is a belief system with no outlet.
So what you're saying is no pressure without a container.
Dress, you get the award for the day.
Done.
That's all you do. I to say that, I would say that it's person to person, because to me, where Dan the Waterman, I have no intentions on talking to that guy. That guy's a fucking moron, and I hate talking like that. But it's so obvious to me how he's doing it on purpose. He is 100% stirring the panel up. I know that because he doesn't only do it here; he does it to flat earthers as well. But at the same time, every time I say something, especially correctly, it's I can bring more in, more information of that topic in. I'm testing myself. It's to me, it's more of a knowledge builder way of keeping it there. And at the same time, I will always feel this way because I was the one that was out there. There's someone out there who is a flat earther, who does really actually give a fuck. And every time they get these conversations, they may not understand most of it, but they're getting bits and pieces, and hopefully, they're able to.
I hate to point this out, though, but I get the feeling that we all contribute to delusions of grandeur on a scale that we don't really recognize. So if you went to Nathan's show, if you went to Ranty's show, what do they talk about predominantly? Well, Ranty will be talking about, Rumpus is a liar because he did X, Y, and Z, and blah, blah, blah. Now, it's always talking about in opposition to someone. They feel validated because there is an argument against them.
Mm-hmm. But, okay, this is why I know they're snake oil salesmen. Ready?
You don't think that they would be more validated if there was no argument?
No. This is how everyone can find out who's real and who's not. If you have a 4 or 3 hour, like we're having now, a 3 hour stream, if that stream is flat earth all the fucking time, there's an issue. The same way my streams meander, Jose's do the same thing. They may not meander so far with so many different topics, but flat earth does get to you. My brain purposely, without me even realizing it, will diverge from flat earth in the topic we're talking about. That's one of the best reasons I like having Barney and Blue and Paul over in the server. It's like I get to bounce these crazy ideas off my head, which will help me understand maybe 1 or 2 avenues I've been trying to think about. Because regardless of whether I'm flat earth or not, I still question a lot of stuff. And I don't question it like they do because I want the knowledge of it before I start bashing it. Or I understand I need to know what the hell it is before I can do that.
But you're all actors, man. You're all playing a role. Aristarchus.
Yeah, well, I need to get paid because
Aristarchus.
I ain't got paid.
Barney, I met someone that does the most frightening, realistic Rand Campbell impression.
I don't know who the hell that is. Oh, wait, guys, I apologize. I gotta get the fuck out of here. I was supposed to leave like 20 minutes ago.
Bye.
I'll say but no, Barney, you got anything you want to promote or say? You doing anything?
Not at the moment. Okay. I'm going on vacation.
When are you taking off?
Have a good vacation, Bunny. Have a good one. Where are you going?
Summer break.
Nice?
Yeah, we're going to an island. Gonna have some seaside fun.
See who else
Are you gonna do
is
some
here.
observations there? Gonna do any little experiment, little
Nope.
horizon peeking? No.
Nope. I'm gonna tickle my children and entertain my wife, and then I'm going to entertain my children and tickle my wife.
Oh yeah.
Like a good holiday to me.
And I would say I'm going to embrace this time to just get all my opinions out and not have Barney come out of nowhere and go, Not a force.
So guys, I just want to make one quick point here. If Barney has a new son or daughter by March or April next year, we'll know why.
I hope everyone thinks about that.
No
all
more.
night.
3 is more than enough.
Too much information. TMI. That's what I say there.
For real, for
My
real.
children are now numerically superior to the adults in the house, and
Yes, I'm pretty sure tickling doesn't cause that.
Oh, wait a minute. You're doing the wrong type of tickling then. All right,
Did you get
guys.
the manual?
Let me get down this
See you
list real
later,
quick. I gotta get down this list. Toady, you wanna?
Yep.
You got anything going on?
No, are you closing the hangout down? You closing?
No. I'm not gonna close the hangout. I'm gonna end the stream, but you guys can stick around if you want.
Yeah, I've got a video that I created with Rumpus. Dean was actually there, Farmer's Boy, and a load of others, Brian and some others that I've forgotten, which I'm going to be trying to put on Ranties over the bank holiday, this bank holiday coming up, to do gas pressure. That's why I asked about Spurs of gas pressure. So I've got that coming up, and nothing else.
You're still in the Discord, right?
So yeah, I'm still in Discord. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I gotta try to remember to get you into the bunker.
Yeah, that's a good idea because I had to ping Farmers.
Yeah. It basically.
I joined today, so.
Yeah, Dress. I swore you were already there, man.
No,
I apologize.
I have a different Discord name, so you
Jack
probably would.
Sprat.
No, it should be Foolish Decisions if I've done the right one. It's just always weird.
It could be many
Join my main server.
It could be Jackson. No, it should be. Yeah, I've joined your main server.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As long as you're there, I can find you and then I can get you there. No worries.
I'm just checking to see what username I was in under.
Foolish. Yeah. It's foolish.
Yeah, Foolish Decisions. Yeah.
And on Discord, Rumpus appears as a sheep on mine for some reason. I don't know why.
At least I'm consistent on my avatar. You see, that's what I try and do to help people.
That's very good, Russ. You're a legend. You're a real legend, mate.
That's why I got the name.
All right, guys. I gotta get out of here. Oh shit! I still got it more. Dean, you're last. Schrodinger's cat. Got anything going on?
Did
I just ask you?
See me when I debate Arwen. We're still trying to hammer out the date. And if you haven't seen me on the shills, go back and check that out and subscribe to them because that channel is going places. Thanks.
Please wear a Dungeons and Dragons shirt when you debate him, please.
Oh, geez. You hear that thunder? It's
Damn.
like a motherfucker here.
Actually, seriously, Schrodinger's cat. If you wear a D&D T-shirt, it will distract the fuck out of him.
He may.
He's a big D&D fan.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were there on that discussion, but it went on.
No. He lives there.
I did. I don't have one, but I think if I wore a D&D T-shirt, I would have to give myself a wedgie.
Yeah, do that too. Erebus, you there? You want to shout out anything? I don't think you talked very much today, or at all.
No, you're good, dude.
Okay, cool. Dress. You already said something? You're the one who said something about freaking the baby and all that crap, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I need to add no more to this conversation.
Yeah.
I think I could have ended with the container line, and that probably would have piqued me nicely.
Blue.
Oh, all I got is gas pressure without a container.
The world. And I like to add this to it now. I like to add this now to it. When they're saying that when we're talking about the gas pressure and they're like, in a container, it's not about the container. It's about it being contained by gravity.
But I saw this guy. There was a guy who did a really good experiment. We should get in contact with him. He was like BlueMarbleScience, I think he was called.
Oh, this guy right here, huh?
To do, guy where? You know him?
Yeah, he's
doing something.
So do you.
Big Blue.
Are you BlueMarbleScience? I thought you were Big Blue.
That's his. Yeah. He's BlueMarbleScience.
So was you actually doing those experiments with the pipes and everything?
Yeah.
Oh my
Hey, Toady.
Sorry,
I did the same thing. Wait, you came in when you first started coming in here, you weren't Big Blue. You were
I forgot now.
Yeah, but you weren't. I had no clue.
No gorilla there either, right? I didn't realize because it was just this guy doing this experiment. We never saw the guy, and right, okay, apologies. Well, great work. I admire your work.
You didn't know you've been sitting next to him the whole time.
I didn't know.
I'm annoyed because I can never remember the name of the mule. And I
what I'm
want to say
saying. We should
Henry
get in
F.
contact with this guy who did all this brilliant stuff.
That's
with his pipes,
disrespectful,
but
Dross.
obviously-
You're talking about Gladys.
Gladys.
Gladys?
Gladys.
All right, I gotta get through this. Barney, I said you. Alan, you got anything?
Yeah, come and join us on the Aussie Perspective stream. It sort of starts between 11 and sometime after midday UK time. I think that's about 8:30, 9 o'clock in Eastern Australia, where most of the guys are from. It should be fun. It's a bit of flat Earth. It's a bit of watching and commentating on debunking videos and just silly videos of a silly scientific nature.
And I go and I know all of them because what's going to happen is I'm going to turn into an Australian. It's going to be awesome.
When you say the Aussie Perspective, is that the Terry Davis
Yes.
channel? Because
Yeah. I got to get his link because
I kind of semi-help him produce the show. So
if I'll find it because I know I'm subscribed to it. I'm gonna get his link. I gotta put the link in my chat so he knows, or so everyone can just click there and at least find him. Yeah, Terry's awesome. He was actually one of the original Aussies that were always at my stream. It was awesome. I liked him a lot. He comes around every blue moon now. I think he's a little busy with his, server. But yeah, no, guys, go check him out if you guys don't know who he is. I will have his link in my chat or in the description by tomorrow, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a bit late in Aussie land right at the minute for him to come along and chat.
Yeah, that's what it. Because I completely shifted my stream times from what I used to do. I used to be late in the day.
I guess we in the UK kind of bridge Aussie to America, I guess, I suppose, in the time zones, something like that.
In our morning or United States, I'm on the West Coast. Actually, it's perfect because I'm on the West Coast and Jose's on the East Coast. Our mornings and late mornings it's literally like the prime time. Like I don't think me and Jose could have got any luckier. I mean, I don't get their numbers, but I definitely got a jump when I started going on earlier.
It's pretty interesting that a lot of it's driven by the American hosting of these shows, yeah. Whereas for us Brit contingents, it's sort of late afternoon to the evening normally is that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, yeah, to do with the timings and how we do it.
Because it's the one thing that I definitely I prefer to go live randomly, but it's hard to get you guys.
Yeah, people to consistently attend, of course. I guess the thing in America is you're not going to get many non-workers attending. Do you see what I mean? Because like I can only attend obviously because it's the Jose show. It's out of my working day, right? Whereas if it was like 9-10 in my morning, I'm at work, right? There's no way I'm ever attending a show at that.
Yeah,
time.
if I start working, like if I got a couple projects that I really don't need to work, but I have the opportunity to make it extra, and if I did that, then I would end up being late again. But it wouldn't be forever, but because I'm more comfortable doing it now because at the end of the day I get tired faster, or if my day was bad, then it rubs off, and so I don't want to do all that kind of. So I enjoy this time, but like I said, I kind of work out of my office in the house, or I do projects on the side, and they will randomly pop up. So there will be times people out there that I won't be live for a week or two at this time. I mean,
Shawn, were you not going? Have you got something important to do?
Yeah, I gotta go get my goddamn son, and everyone keeps talking, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, you included.
Can I politely say, Shawn, fuck off?
No, you can't, because I still got to get to Dean. But thank you, Dress. You seem to be fuck. You guys don't even. Yesterday he's like, Sean's gonna be late. I was gonna be early. I decided to be late because of Dress. I was like, okay, cool. Okay. All right, I'm late. Yeah, I gotta get out of here. Dean, you still here, man? I know you're here. You never leave.
Yeah.
Say something, man. We miss you.
Yeah, I'm definitely not coming back.
You're here now.
Barney,
You said that
well,
earlier.
Exactly. You are here now.
No, listen.
You were monitoring.
Just to Barney's point about it's not the right analogy when you're walking past people, but it's also the people that are already listening and have been listening. If you've got 20 people that kind of believe in the flat Earth, and then you've got professionals going in to kind of vehemently argue against it, then I think that provides validity to the 20 to really believe in it and get behind it now, because there's a cause and there's a reason. And to you, Toda, I've got no idea.
Who the fuck is a professional here?
Yeah, wait. Yeah, first, no one's claimed that. And second, how do people verify if they're correct or not unless they hear correct?
You're a professional software developer, Barney.
He's not a professional physicist.
I'm not talking about software development here.
Yeah, he's only talked computers one time here, which I wouldn't mind you doing again if you have like something like that type of, you know what I mean?
And that was not computer development.
It was to me.
Exactly. It was computer development on a level where you can understand it who have never programmed.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right.
But anyway, Toda, I just find it really, really amusing that out of all the hundreds.
Remember,
and hundreds,
any long conversations we can have after
Yeah,
Sean's
I'll end this right now.
Yeah. See you later, Sean.
Yeah.
Bye.
I think we all should message Dean, even in the chat, to his Skype. I'll even give you guys the address later. It's to say we miss him. All right, guys. Yeah, I gotta get out of here. I appreciate the shit out of everyone that was on the panel. Again, I know I say it every freaking stream pretty much, but what can I say? I have surrounded myself with people that elevate my knowledge, hopefully elevate your guys' knowledge and themselves as well. From time to time, we come across people like Dan the Waterman. I'm sorry, I don't like speaking this way, but he's disingenuous. I think he's here for the argument, to stir shit up, because he does it with flat earthers as well, and it's not on argumentative terms with anything. It would even say common sense, or his opinion is even part of it. But again, like I said, I don't care if they're here or not. I guess because Chris is in the jiu-jitsu, we'll talk, but I'm like Dean, I'm not really interested in battling with it, except for the fact that I'm building the muscles in my brain. So again, I don't care if you're a flat earther. I don't care if you're here. I don't give a shit. You don't have to get on my panel. I don't give a fuck at all. Why? Because again, I'm learning, and anytime you're here, I'm literally trying to help you learn. Whether you want to take it or not is up to you. Understand that the people you're getting your information from have no qualifications to doubt science. That's issue 1, right? Issue 2, you're not taking in the information from both sides and evaluating them with an honest opinion and or an honest outlook on it. You've already decided what it is, and not everyone. Don't think I'm talking to everyone. This is to the Dan and the Waterman, the Nathans, the ones that are seriously and obviously BS. Like Dean had said, no matter what, there had been a matter of time before I came to Glover. I don't know if that's true, but there was only a matter of time before I had at least a baseline understanding that there was no evidence for flat Earth. And just that fact alone shows it's a globe. Now you want to start coming into the knowledge of what I know. I've been asked this question recently too. I 100% know we live on a sphere. Why? Because I only need a few. Two. There are 2 things right off the bat that show me we do not live on a flat Earth. And anyone who is not willing to at least acknowledge, the observation we made with the Rogers Center today. I mean, that's the realization of it. Any flat Earth you come across, show them that observation. Ask them how a lunar eclipse works. One of two things are going to happen. They're going to show you their true colors and that they don't know what they're talking about and they're running for the fences with it. Or, oh shit, I got to rethink some stuff. I think Earth is seriously flat got backed into a corner and slipped and said that's impossible. But he said it. So why aren't the other flat earthers going, what is he seeing? Why isn't Earth is seriously flat telling them the same thing? Hey, I thought it was flat too. Hey, lunar eclipses won't work. Why aren't flat earthers doing this? Why aren't you guys having these meetups and going, okay, man, lunar eclipse is a serious issue for flat earth. We got to figure this out. And when I say figure this out, I don't mean figure this out like we decided it works, because a random object in the sky that we cannot, an invisible object you can't see, that you see, may become the lunar eclipse. It doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna get out of here because I'm ranting and raving. All I gotta say is press. Don't let them control this. Put it this way: there's no way they can control the conversation. Dan the Waterman said it perfectly. I'm here to ask questions, fine. But the second you diverge from those questions, the second you decide that you can decide if we're honest, lying, knowledgeable, period. You're putting it out. You're putting yourself out there as snake oil salesman, as someone who doesn't care. Dan the Waterman, I highly suggest you stop using that same video. I highly suggest that you start understanding what you come here. Don't come here until you understand something, because I'm not willing to have that argument anymore. It's very clear you don't have a clue. Don't say we. You're not part of that team that did any type of test. How do I know? You have no numbers. You have zero knowledge of how it was even constructed, let alone telling me I'm wrong. So with that said, guys, I'm out. Thank you guys for being here. Peace. Shout out to Lenny Harry and his vegan friends.